of the morning to you, CT Muga. My goodness. Okay.
It is finished.
C'est fini.
Oh,
Wow. Completely.
Quissa.
How are you, City Muga?
I, City Muga, I'm well, thank you. Yes.
It's good to see you this morning.
Sansana Ndugu, and how are you?
I'm very well as well.
Sansana.
Yes.
Nduh Okoh,
yeah.
how are you this
I
morning?
am very well.
That is lovely. It's good to know that you're well.
I'm happy to see you.
You know, it is very good to base your happiness on solid things. It's good.
Oh no, I don't know what I'll do with you guys.
Lovely stuff.
Telling you. Yeah.
So we just watched the U.S. presidential debate, first of three. And as soon as it was finished, they were watching it on CNN, and Wolf Blitzer of CNN said this is the most chaotic presidential debate he has watched. He is not even going to be surprised if the second and third do not take place.
Why did he think it was chaotic to
I'm not
begin
sure
with?
if we all watched the same debate.
I just wasn't sure. I mean,
From what perspective? From our perspective as Africans, or from his perspective as a commentator?
it's probably his perspective as a commentator, but also as a CNN commentator. That was my immediate reaction. I was like, ha, there you go. CNN had piped this.
Well, it would be interesting to know why.
Appear as if, Joe Biden has not performed so well, clearly, like he has come out on top of that debate. And then you now change the narrative.
Sure. Maybe if what Blitzer was
Bless you,
saying
bless you,
was
sir. Bless you.
to the point that Trump, also like you said, taking from a CNN point of view, which we know is biased already in terms of their support, talking about the fact that Trump continually talked about the perceived fraud in the ballot, especially coming from the mail ballot system. He talked about Biden's son, unfortunately, took some digs at him quite often, and there was quite a lot of interruption on his part. Maybe that's what he's alluding to in terms of chaos. But we'll look at more details of the debate later.
Okay. We'll also be talking about what's happening in the country. We are still expecting, of course, to see what the courts say with regards to CJ Maraga's advice to the president. But we still have to discuss it politically. I mean, what is the way out eventually of attaining and achieving the two-third gender principle in elected positions, especially Parliament, National Assembly and the Senate? What is the way out? So we'll speak to one MP who is also a lawyer and who is a woman, and we'll want to understand her perspective.
From
This
three
is-
different angles.
Yeah.
Legal, female, member of parliament.
Going home.
Okay. Going home with the last one.
Yes.
All right.
All right. And then we'll be looking at other headlines, but let's begin where we always begin, because we know where we always begin. Coronavirus tracking, coronavirus and its spread in the country and in the world.
So let's start in the country. 210 new cases yesterday. 7 new deaths, unfortunately, taking Kenya's numbers now to 38,378 and 707 deaths. That's what we're looking at now. The numbers rising ever so slightly, getting past the 150 mark for the second time now in about 14 days. In the world, 33,841,729 cases with 1,012,657 deaths. Recovered so far are 25,145,067 recoveries around the globe. The United States now very close to 7.5 million cases. They continue to rise on a daily basis. If we can just look at those numbers that we're dealing with, there's so many things happening in the US at the same time. The protests on Black Lives Matter haven't really gone away. These continue. The presidential debates, campaigning and going towards elections in November, and then throw in so many other things. And now you have, not now, but I mean, and then throw in Corona, it's not a pretty situation. Let's look at yesterday, ending just about now. The cases in the United States. On the 29th of September, 44,227 cases in the US alone on that day. So the numbers haven't really dropped. If anything, they've risen and they continue to rise. But it just seems like something that they deal with. Whereas here, you see that 90% of the cases having been found are asymptomatic. Only 34% of the cases in the United States are asymptomatic. So people are still presenting to hospital or medical centers with these symptoms and then having to get treatment for the same. 977 deaths in the US yesterday, taking that number now to 7,400,000. Okay? The numbers continue to rise in other countries around the world. We know that India also continues to record high numbers. They're now at 6,223,519, just a shy of 1 million behind the United States. Brazil at 4.7 million, Russia at 1.1 million. And Colombia, Peru also now. Spain, we see again, Corona is rearing its head where numbers seem to have gone down. Mexico still continues to rise. South Africa now at 672,572. Let's just look at the numbers that were recorded in South Africa yesterday, down to 903 cases, whereby at the highest point, we saw South Africa recording 13,944. The numbers have dropped significantly. So yesterday, they recorded 903 new cases and 81 deaths. So those numbers have reduced. And looking at what they've said, they've been able to attribute this to the lockdown that was instituted, and even when they opened things again, then the announcement of a reintroduction of the lockdown then saw that they were able to really reduce on the cases. And when they thought that the health system was going to take a beating, it actually turned out that they were able to manage things considerably well. All right, so that's what we're looking at around the world in terms of COVID-19.
It's the lie of the land.
Yep.
India has new problems other than just COVID. Amnesty International making moves to sort of like pack and leave India.
Because of why?
Well, they claim that they are being harassed by the Indian government. The Indian government, on their end, are saying that Amnesty International have been flaunting rules that are laid down for institutions like foreign institutions like Amnesty International, and all they're doing is trying to right the wrongs that have been there. So it is a saga that has actually been going on since last week. It's just continuing.
But it's the only rights organization that is affected, human rights, Amnesty.
It is the only rights organization that is talking about what loudly, about what they are facing. Remember, the thing that has been happening in India, what has come to the fore is a lot of their politics is nationalistic politics.
Yep.
It's like there seems to be a mantra and there seems to be a leaning towards India being for Indians only and nobody else. And
India first.
India first, and then an intolerance to any view that may contradict that particular narrative, and an intolerance also to anyone who doesn't subscribe to that particular perspective. There's been this growing realization and indication. But we will look at that when we get to the time when we're looking at headlines.
Hey, okay. Wow. Big issues happening, big issues. Yes. Well, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 12 minutes after 6. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather, and then we'll look at the headlines of the day. Our live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM.ke on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
As the world changes, so do we. We adapt to our situations to bring out the best in us. This is why the Standard Group and Oxford University Press East Africa have partnered to bring you Tutor Summer Online. For just 10 shillings, you have unlimited access to the reputable source of revision materials conveniently. All you have to do is log into tutorsummer.standardmedia.co.ke and make the most of the time for all students, including candidates for both primary and secondary schools. So, as we stay home, we keep dreams of future successes alive while making homeschooling an achievable reality together, effectively. Tutor Summer Online. Log in to success. A partnership between the Standard Group and the Oxford University Press East Africa.
All right,
The weather
what
with
it looks like up there. Starting off in Nairobi, 16 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions, going to highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. Nyeri's cloudy at 15, going to highs of 24 and a chance of rain later on. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 13 degrees, highs of 24 and a chance of rain as well. 12 degrees and clear skies in Eldoret this morning. Thunderstorms are in the forecast for later, going to highs of 22 and lows of 11. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 17 degrees, highs of 26 and coming down to lows of 16, also with a chance of rain. Kakamega is looking at thunderstorms later. It's currently mostly cloudy at 16 degrees. The low today will be 15. It's mostly cloudy in Mombasa at 24, going to highs of 28 and mostly cloudy conditions. Mostly cloudy in Malindi this morning at 25 with highs of 28. Cloudy skies in Kampala at 19 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18 and showers expected later. Dar es Salaam is mostly cloudy at 23, highs of 31 today. Take a look into Joburg where it's mostly cloudy at 12. Throughout South Africa today, expect rains with highs of 21 and lows of 11. Raining down in Lagos this morning at 28 degrees. It's going to remain that way for most of today. Lows of 23 today. Mostly sunny in Beijing at 18. Highs of 22 and lows of 13 as they get well into the evening. London skies are clear at 12. It'll change later with showers expected with highs of 17 and lows of 10. It's partly cloudy in Paris at 16 degrees. Highs of 20 and lows of 14. And finally in New York, still Tuesday night. It's cloudy, however, at 22. When they wake up to rains. Highs of 24 and lows of 18.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice.
After 6, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We are live streaming there. Yegon, good morning. He says good morning to you.
Good morning.
The entire team. Looking great. Indeed, it is finished. Hello, Yegon. Where are you today? Are you back in Wajir? Where are Yegon is Matu or
Nandi Hills.
He's a globetrotter. Wherever you are, Yegon, asante sana for tuning in. And wherever you are tuning in this morning, karibu to the show. CT Muga, as we begin the review of the headlines, let's start with today's proverb.
That is an excellent thought. Let us do precisely that. You cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana.
No.
Right. Who tried?
This isn't this particular proverb, this statement isn't research based. It is a proverb. Anecdotal, observation, preferences, likes, dislikes, perspectives, the reality of them.
You cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana.
No, you can't. And this one, the authorities state that even if you wake up very early in the morning, you still can't convince the monkey.
You will not.
Yes.
So don't even dare.
Well, you can dare if you
Why
wish.
bother?
Why bother?
Right.
Yes. But this one lent itself very pleasantly to our politics. Yes.
You cannot convince us.
You
that
can't convince certain
honey
people.
is better than the bananas we have.
Depending on who their honey is. And even in relationships, the moment someone is determined that this honey of theirs is the honey, you are not going to convince them
to eat a banana.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Let's look at the headline.
Yes, shall we? Let's. So Ruto goes wild. There were wheelbarrows and things being thrown up in the air yesterday. Okay, so let's see. Ruto goes wild is the headline on the Standard. So let's give him a moment today, shall we? Deputy President takes fight to his boss a day after skipping the state function. Interesting that he did that. There's the critics to bring it on. And before we go into the details of that story, just some interesting quotes that were made by him. I'm giving notice. It is not going to be business as usual where we talk tribes, however difficult and uncomfortable it will be. I am in a hustler's mansion. I am a tenant courtesy of your votes and prayers. I am not interested in votes. I am interested in empowering the people as the DP. The other will come by God's grace. And another one, we will continue what we are doing. What I do? What I do? What will they do? Okay. They will have to submit. Respect is two ways. You respect to be respected. I'm a DP now, but I rose from selling chicken. Okay. Yep. So, looking into the details of this, it was the morning after he skipped the conference that took place on COVID. He was uncharacteristically gung-ho as he announced the end of business as usual with the promise of real change when he takes the reins of power in 2022. So it's not about I will work with, no, I will be president. It's essentially what he's saying. The event on the day President Uhuru Kenyatta left the country for Europe offered the greatest indicator yet that Ruto has finally stopped hedging his bets and has taken flight from government. Uhuru is in France for a 3-day state visit at the invitation of President Emmanuel Macron. So now that he's away, Ruto is stamping some kind of authority. But Ruto was instead champing at the bit, issuing threats and giving notice at the same time. It was time to throw caution to the wind, according to this. He says, let's stop the hypocrisy. If Williams, this was now Kericho Senator Aaron Cheriot, and he said, let's stop the hypocrisy. If William Ruto's contribution counted, how come he has never been invited to any government COVID response meeting? Now you want him to join the COVID millionaires in sharing their looting success. And this was in response to questions asked about why he was not present at the function. Okay, so stamping his authority, stamping his presence and his place.
Hosted,
the DP is not out.
And you see what it's very, very good visuals, actually, you know, what he was doing. He is there with Mkokoteni person. He's there with somebody who is making sugarcane right out of, juice out of sugarcane, you know, salon people and, you know, just the hustler, that hustler narrative. And I think I actually remember some time back, even last year on this show, it was said, you know, this hustler tag that Ruto has picked, it's changing the conversation in the politics of 2022 from the issues of tribe to a different tribal conversation. It's a tribe of the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
It's a class issue now. It's when he's talking about hustler, he's talking about, you know, me, I'm the one who
I
represents
work for my
the Mwananchi wa Kawaida. I'm one of you, right? These are the guys, and that's why he came up with the issue of the other guys being entitled. They've grown into
Dynasty.
They're parts of the dynasty. You know, that narrative. If I was just to score it, I'd give it a 10 over 10. Done very well, and it has caught on.
It has caught on. Where exactly, Eric? Where has it caught on?
In the public eye.
It's caught on in the media.
It's also caught on in the public.
I'm not so certain.
The issue, no. It's not whether it's popular or not, whether it's accepted or not. I'm saying, has it caught on? If you went anywhere today and said, Hustler Nation, would someone tell you, I know what that means? Yes, they would. If you went anywhere in this country and said, Dynasty, would people relate to that statement? Yes, they would. Would they tell you who they think is Dynasty? Yes, they would. They may be arguing on who exactly belongs to the dynasty or not. But the thing is, that phrasing, the communication is out there. There's a hustler versus dynasty.
People are associating with it. That's for sure. It comes up in conversations. It's something people talk about now. That part of the hustler nation. I'm waking up today to take steps as part of the hustler nation. It's something that he came up with, and it has caught on. It has caught on. Leave alone the fact that the original definition of hustler is a thief.
No. It's not
The Kenyan meaning of hustler has
totally
never
different.
been a thief.
No. In fact, people don't see it in that light.
No,
It's not negative.
Yep.
that's what I'm saying.
It's a struggler. It's
somebody
somebody
who
who is
is-
waking up and, struggling to make ends meet.
You see, the reason why I was questioning this notion that it has caught on, it's not that I doubt that it's become a byword for struggle. It is whenever someone believes that they're in the struggle. There was a time when the word struggle was the equivalent of hustler.
Yep.
I'm in the struggle. We are struggling. It is more this, that when you base a forward movement in politics on a certain narrative, one, what you do is you open the narrative to A, challenge, and B, it will also open the narrative to question. Because if you look at, say, for instance, the union movement, the movements that we've had within trade unions, the people who led trade unions were workers, not employers, workers. And they were just part and parcel, they were the first among equals, so to speak. And that's the reason why within that particular conglomeration of people, they are referred to as brother so-and-so, brother so-and-so, brother so-and-so, okay? And there was no doubt that this is someone who shared a certain commonality with them. Now, the narrative that we hear about the hustler, unfortunately, is the reality of the person leading that narrative. Is everything about him except the history that he talks about. Everything about him puts him in the rank of the dynasties. Everything.
That's why I said it's subjective. In your opinion, right now, if you started now looking at it and analyzing, when you start analyzing, then you go into that conversation. That is he a hustler today? You see?
Yes.
You go into that conversation. But
arguably, he may have begun as a hustler.
that's a conversation
And the
now
hustling that he has done is what has brought him.
here. And so he's saying, I have come from far to be where I am. I hustled my way up to this point. Right?
Precisely.
And that's exactly what everyone of you as hustlers are aspiring to do.
Yes.
I am here as an example of success of hustling.
Do you know what is of interest? Is that true? That particular story is even the story of monarchies. People who would be king and who are kings, if you look at the history, the bands who killed the most people. And after killing everyone who may have wanted that same seat, they were able to keep everybody else at bay.
Yeah.
And if they sat there long enough, then their sons and daughters and relatives could inherit what they had acquired. And if you looked at even what you call the landed gentry, a lot of it had to do with how much wealth you had acquired. Now, acquiring, it isn't as though the inheritance came after someone had acquired it on your behalf. But the process of acquiring it, it was never pleasant, really. Because if you simply go back 2 generations, you will find that the so-called dynasties, those who began those dynasties were hustlers.
Oh, they built it from something.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Well,
They built it from something.
actually, with our history as Africans, unless you came from a family of chiefs, and even that chief,
Even the chief.
it's a question of how willing you are to go back into history.
How far down? How many generations later? See, if you belong to a generation that has inherited, you are not a hustler.
No, you're not.
Your parents were hustlers.
You're entitled.
Not you.
Not you. If you're the one whose parent was a hustler and then you also hustled and then you got there, you are a hustler.
If you increased what they left you, then one could argue that you're a
That you
hustler.
then a
Yes,
hustler.
you're a hustler.
You know?
But you are right. The term hustler has acquired completely new meaning and a positive one in this country.
In this country, hustler is.
It has been pronounced adequate times. You hear it oftentimes so that it's been normalized.
It's been normalized.
So
In fact, it was picked up. If you look at it, the politicians picked it up from what the ordinary Kenyan was saying. The ordinary Kenyan use of the word hustler was not in a negative connotation at all.
no.
Naamka kuingia kwa hustle yangu. This is my hustle. This is what I do. This is This is, I'm a hustler.
This is my struggle.
This is my struggle. So they just latched onto it. This is actually the buzzword in the community. So I'm just going to use it. Ride with it because it's a catchy phrase. It's a catchy term. Gone. So here we are now. We're looking at the DP yesterday doing all those things. Nation is saying, defiant Ruto, the deputy president gave COVID conference a wide berth despite State House invite. Was he rebelling or playing politics? And if you look at those words that you've just read attributed to him, Nduh, then clearly it was more of rebelling and playing politics at the same time. We also saw a reaction from some of the Jubilee party leaders who were speaking in Njeri yesterday. Jubilee Vice Chairman David Morales said the DP's role has been taken over by Dr. Matiang'i. He has no job if the president is around. His only job is to deputize the president. You know, his job was taken over by Matiang'i, who's in charge of coordinating other ministries. He's on record saying he has no job. So let's wait and see.
You know, if you actually want to break down a statement like that and juxtapose it to the politics of our time, there's one reality that comes out. It doesn't matter how many roles you toss around or how many configurations of roles you toss around. The role of the deputy, if I understand it correctly, is to deputize the president. Number one. Number two, if I understand it correctly, we don't have a president per se, singular. We have a presidency. Yes, it's a combo. It's a 2-in-1, 1-in-2.
So there's none who's deputizing the other.
No, what? According, it's a package deal. The president didn't come on its own and then appoint the president. No, the president came with the deputy.
Yep.
Yes. So if we are talking about dissolving this particular union, then we're not talking about the deputy moving away. We're talking about dissolving the presidency. That's what we'll be talking about. And I'd like to talk to an expert to explain to me.
It.
Of course I am.
All of them can just leave.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
It's the same thing that happened with Polycarp Igathe. He left. We did not dissolve the governorship of Nairobi. Came together as a ticket. One can leave.
I would like to talk to an expert to tell me.
We have seen it practically.
That was with the governor.
Also, yeah, but it's the same. It's the same principle.
Nope.
They come together. This is the chief executive of the county, chief executive of the country. They come together, elected together on the ballot. One did not come and then appoint the other. Just like you said, it's the same thing. The two are elected, right? So if a deputy governor can walk away,
a deputy governor and a deputy
and the deputy and then it remains, if the governor can walk away or be kicked out or whatever, and the deputy remains, because we've seen a governor leave office,
Eric,
and deputy left.
Yes, and we've even seen a governor being impeached and the deputy taking over. I would like to understand this about the presidency. Yes. About the governors, I understand. I've seen it. The presidency, I would like to understand it more.
Okay. Okay. You're basically just looking for some understanding of something that is quite clearly there.
Actually, if it was clear to me, then I wouldn't seek understanding. It's not clear to me.
Yeah, I'm saying it's not clear to you, but it's clearly there. Just look.
You know, the thing is,
it's right there.
If
can a deputy leave office? Yes.
Your argument is
can
solid.
Be impeached.
But the thing is, Eric, I don't know.
The deputy can be impeached.
You seem
just
convinced.
Like a president can be impeached.
Yes, but what happens if the deputy resigns?
Same.
All right. Those who understand the law and who studied it perhaps could wade in and explain to me this, because I actually don't know that. No, I don't. I'm not sure about it.
28 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's look at traffic, what's happening on the roads, and then continue with looking at other big headlines in the morning. Ziggy Mkulima says Mwisinga Itumbu tuko ndani. Mwisinga Itumbu. Where is that, Ziggy? Mwisinga Itumbu tuko ndani hadi tamati. And then Geoffrey Mochama is in Kisumu, of course, and Bede Asley is in Macha.
Hi.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, where are we stuck this morning? It looks like so far so good, guys. Okay, unfortunately, there's been an accident at the Thika Superhighway at the toll station towards Nairobi, exactly where lorries are being inspected. Somebody unfortunately lying on the ground, and it seems to have been a fatal one. So waiting for police to come and clear that away. I hope we don't get this to be the trend this morning, guys. So if you're approaching that, please be very, very careful. Hopefully on the Eastern Bypass today, things will be a little bit smoother than they were yesterday. We're going to have to keep an eye on that and see what it looks like. Mombasa Road, the usual clog up that we see between Mulolongo and the area around Cabanas, that's happening already. Moving very slowly this morning, but it's moving at the moment. Let's see what it looks like in about half hour or so. Then from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout all the way to Westlands on the Uhuru Highway. It's moving slowly as well, and it's likely to get even slower as more cars get on the road. It is smack the end of the month, so expect to see more activity. Be careful though. Spice of MKE on Twitter is how you can reach us in case you get stuck somewhere. Let us know. Let's see how things progress.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
This survey by Infotruck has landed Infotruck in hot
some
soup.
Problems. Yes.
Spot of bother.
Just a bit.
So what happened?
So it would appear that in Parliament yesterday, across members of Parliament and rather across the National Assembly and the Senate, as they took their sittings yesterday, this was a point of concern. And quite a number of members of Parliament essentially accused Infotruck and their CEO of doctoring some of these results with money in exchange. They actually even went ahead and called on the MP of Rarieda, where the CEO of Infotruck is also from, and said that there was some collusion there in terms of getting some of these numbers to where they were. There was also...
The Rarieda MP was complaining about, or is being said to have...
He's being said to have. And
to have been favoured by.
To have been favoured. And he actually stood up and said, you know what, we are from the same constituency. In fact, I consider her to be a member of my... Because we are from the same constituency and even the same clan, I then consider her to be my sister. However, it does not mean that I would enter into such an unscrupulous deal as to get myself favoured and others maligned for the sake of
But
cash.
where does the malignment come in?
On his
when
part,
you're ranked at your worst performing.
yeah, somebody took it to be. We also had another member of Parliament.
It's not malignment.
We also had another member of Parliament. I can't remember CT. Duck Goose. What's her name? I'm sorry.
Is it male or female?
Duck Goose Gander. That's the only way I can
The
remember.
Laikipia woman rep.
There you go. The woman rep for Laikipia.
Kate Warogoro.
Thank you. Stood up yesterday and she said very clearly that she was actually invited to Infotruck, and somebody who she didn't want to mention their name, and she was there for a total of 3 minutes, and they offered her some money. Rather, she was asked to offer some money to somebody to get her ranking boosted.
She was there for 3 minutes.
She was there for 3 minutes, and in those
she was
3
called,
minutes,
and it
this
was a
conversation
proposal.
was had.
Like if you pay this amount, then you can...
You'll be higher up in the rankings.
And
you
she
know?
can't remember the person.
She
went-
refused to say the person's name.
She did not want to.
She did not
name
want
the
to bring
person.
this out. But she gave a warning directly to the CEO and said, we know what you're doing. We can see you. There's a way to market your company. If this is how you want to do it, I see you and I will come for you.
Eric,
She said this on the floor of the
Do you
house
see a dead
yesterday.
cat somewhere?
On the floor of the house
I
yesterday.
actually
she said,
see a red fish,
yeah?
a herring specifically.
What do you think? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking
What is your antenna picking?
our legislators are thin-skinned. The moment something of this sort is mentioned, let me ask the question, has anybody challenged the details of that report?
They're all challenging it in Parliament yesterday. Oh, you mean apart from them?
No. Challenging it generally and saying these things are wrong is one thing. Challenging it and saying they have said this, but the reality is this.
But we had some people yesterday who asked kind of the same questions that you were asking when we had this conversation the other day, and they said, you know what, it's okay to say that you're best for performing, middle performing, worst performing, but upon what criteria then did you base this result? Are they worst performing because they built roads, schools, whatever? Are they worse, better performing?
They have got to be indicated.
They asked,
It's based-
this question was asked on the floor yesterday
it's based,
severally.
It's based on the opinion of those who were polled. Remember, pollsters, all right, are not really, should we say, research scientists who go into the details of building on a question and going into further and further details so that question and the questions that arise thereafter are responded to. No.
I thought that's what they are.
Not really, Eric. Not really. The first, if they complete the whole train of what it is that they want to do, they may end up that way. Remember, the CEO explained to us and said, there are questions we didn't ask. Because we asked the question, did you ask? They said, no, we didn't ask that question. What we asked was, essentially they were asking, what is your opinion? And the opinions that they were given was this. Not, were you basing your opinion on fact? They didn't ask, can you explain to me in details where this road is and what it is?
And that's why even I had a problem with this survey by, first of all, terming it best performing and worst performing. Because opinion is not about performance.
No, was it there? Was it a problem of the pollster? Was it ours as the media?
No.
Was it us reporting it in that way?
The title of the report is performance. It's a performance index. That is what they presented. They called it a performance index. And they said this is the best performing, and that's how they were ranking. That this is the best performing and this is the worst performing according to their constituents. And you see, what you're asking is, what do you feel about your MP? Now, it's very open-ended.
No, I mean, I don't think they just ask what do you feel, surely.
The question was actually, how would you rank your MP's performance with one being the worst and 10 being the best?
Yes.
How would you rank your MP's performance with one being blah, 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 blah?
It's a perception question.
Okay. So then, how then do you...
What indicators are you using to give your answer?
No,
What
that would be the next question,
You
but
see,
that
they
was not
didn't
asked.
ask. Exactly. So now this is the point that I am making. On the floor of the House yesterday, member of parliament after member of parliament after member of parliament came and asked, upon what was this based? Because they had a little bit of a sourpuss moment because the indicators were not given. So I can be worst performing or middle performing. I want to know what you're basing this on.
Yeah.
And this is where it came from. And this is what now brought about the angst from a lot of people. And they said, because we're not getting this information, we're not getting the stuff, all you've given us is the skeleton with no flesh, then that would then point to the possibility that you are trying to market your organization so that people come to you to do a further study. This was what came out.
And the CEO herself actually said and alluded to that they were showing the MPs some of these statistics, and then the MPs would ask them to conduct a deeper survey.
Right.
Like go and ask now the second and third question.
But you know
So
something?
it appears like it was a hook. I am still standing on that. It appears like it's a hook. You know, I've asked people what they think about you, and they say they don't like you. Now, you know, I can
Why
go and
don't
ask
they
them
like me?
why don't they like me? Now I can go and ask them, but you know, now you need to give me money, so I can go and ask them why exactly they don't like you. This is clickbait.
You know, Eric, the issue of a pollster or polling and the sample, even the issue of the sample sizing, unless it is explained in detail, the science behind it and how it is done and why it is considered to actually be credible, it may sound like the biggest hogwash on the planet. But a lot of what we determine or a lot of what determines the path our lives take have to do with perceptions. Not the details we were discussing here. No, hardly ever.
It's just a perception
Yes,
issue.
it's a perception issue. If you ask, for instance, the question, even now, if someone were to ask me, what do I think of my member of parliament?
You would start by saying, hold on, who's my member of parliament?
Yeah, first of all, I will ask which is my constituency. Not my ancestral home, but in town. Because I vote in town. Okay? Then I'll say, oh, okay. That guy. So really, I honestly wouldn't know what to say. If you ask
Because
me,
you haven't interacted with him.
I haven't interacted with anything.
You start from the number one.
Yes.
Your mind starts working from number one.
Yes.
But if it's somebody who you've interacted with, even not on legislative agenda, not on his leadership, but as a friend, then your mind starts at number 10.
It's very true, Eric. But you see also, where I'm going with this, I'm thinking like a typical African, and it's my rural mindset that comes into play here. In town, where I live, they have street lights. Okay, there's a road which doesn't really have potholes.
Yeah.
Okay, water is not really a problem. Electricity on and off from time to time, like everybody else. So, what is often considered the thing that MPs are required to do for the constituents, my MP doesn't necessarily have to do it for me because those things already exist. It doesn't have to bring water, doesn't have to bring electricity. But if I go back to the rural area and you ask me about my MP, I would have a response. Because we have a road that has a problem. It rains, my friend, it's not a road. Okay?
It's a river.
Yes. And many schools have issues with water, this and this. So I could tell you, this MP, now, it's a perspective.
And if I asked you,
Yes.
second, you've told me this MP, and then ask you about your MCA, would you judge with the same on the same parameter? And then I ask you about woman rep, would you judge on the same about lights and roads and all?
You see what is happening here? The same thing. Go back to factory settings of town. I don't know who my MCA is. Okay? I honestly don't. And I also don't know my woman's rep.
For Nairobi,
I know.
You know her?
Yes. No, Nairobi, I don't know.
It's Esther Passaris.
Oh, it's Esther Passaris.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. See?
Yeah.
You understand?
I get it.
So,
which is your county?
which one? Where I live or home?
Home.
Kisumu County.
Kisumu County.
Yes, I know who my women's rep is.
Okay.
Yes.
And you know your governor.
I know my governor.
And you know
I know
your
my MP. MCA, I don't know.
Senator, you know.
Senator, I know.
All right.
I know who they are. Yes.
You know them by name.
Yes.
So now let's ask you, rate the
Governor
senator.
I've even met.
Rate the senator. What comes to your mind? What are you using to rate that senator?
Actually, I can't rate him because I'm not even sure what he's supposed to do.
All
apart,
right.
Apart from
But you've been asked, you've been confronted by someone and he's telling you, scale of 1 to 10, rate your senator.
what I'm likely to do is rate him by what I've heard people say.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I ask you,
Yes.
same session, rate your woman rep.
Again, what I've heard people say.
Then I ask you, rate the governor.
Him I've met. So
you
I will
you
have
rate
some.
him-
At least I will have knowledge.
You'll rate him based on your interaction with him.
Yes.
Not his performance.
No,
Yeah.
hardly.
Then we go to MP. Rate your MP.
My MP is somebody I know.
All right. So you'll rate him based on your
No, him is
interaction
somebody I
with
actually
him.
know. Yes.
So
So
your interaction. That's what I said. So for this guy,
I'm already positively
your
inclined towards
your
him.
mind starts coming from 10
Yes,
backwards.
precisely.
I can't give him 10. So let me just appear like.
And then people know that I
unfair,
know
you
him.
know,
So
yeah.
if I give him 9, they'll think I'm favoring him. So let me give him 7
Let
and
me
a
give you
half.
7.
Yes, exactly.
And then MCA.
MC, I don't know.
So you'll start from number 1.
Yes.
Thinking, okay, listen.
Or I'll say, give me
3.
a day. Then I'll make a call and say, Nani, who's our MCA?
And now imagine.
Yes.
Imagine you've been asked that, and others have been asked the same, and because they really have, because you're asking about all these seats at the same time, people assume that these people do the same thing. What's the expectation of a senator versus the expectation of a woman rep versus the expectation of an MP? All those guys are in Nairobi. What is the expectation?
Exactly.
What is now? What is it that you're going to judge him on?
You see, Eric, that's what I told you. It's a perception issue because it is not, it has hardly anything to do with anything tangible.
Okay.
All right? And I'm already biased because if it's someone like the MP whom I actually happen to know well, all right, I'm already positively biased in his favor.
So can we name this report something else? Can we not call it a performance index? Call it something else?
Yes, you can.
Like a perception index.
You can. You could call it
Perception-
something else.
perception index.
You could call it something else. But also, please, let's be fair
True.
to the pollster.
Okay.
It's a business, all right? Okay, let's be fair to the pollster. It's a business, and they are going about their business, and actually they have done absolutely nothing wrong. Neither have they asked questions in a way that is
misrepresented.
usually not asked.
The truth of the matter
argument here is that they've misrepresented. What they've gone and done versus what they're presenting may not exactly be.
And if it was all positive, would they be arguing in the
This is
same way?
thing. Look, on one side of it, the argument is that they've not given the full information because it's like you said, it would appear as if then they were baiting more people to then ask further questions, and then with the further questioning then came more work.
The money
on the
now.
other hand, if we want to look at it on face value, this is the perception of the people. Whether you went deeper or not, this is what the people have had to say.
Do you know why this perception is important. It's what someone tells without giving it too much thought and
Thought.
adding anything
Yes.
to it.
Top of your head,
Yes,
this is your
that's what
answer.
you think, and
Yeah.
that reaction is important.
Very important.
It's an
very,
entry
very important.
point.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
It is good. Let's not call it performance. The Speaker of the National Assembly said, "You can't be calling people on the streets and asking them to rank MPs."
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, because those are the people that you legislate over or for. Yes, you can.
Well, the majority said when a researcher calls a subject to discuss the findings, you're basically influencing the results of the research. When you now start calling those MPs and saying, okay, now come, let's discuss. This is what we found out. And we can go back now and get, deeper insight and analysis of what exactly the people meant when they're saying this. How do we know that your ranking has not then moved? So-and-so has paid, so tumuongezee kidogo akwe. From number 290, let's bring him to 200. He's our friend.
No, tulimpatia ngapi? 250 hapana.
Come
on.
Tupunguze 50. Tumpatie 200.
Tumpatie 200. It's the situation room. Hey. Captain Barsite says, CT, you're really struggling to justify your political bias on the issue of Hustler Nation. Wali mukubali yaishe. The hustler phrase has bolted and selling like hotcake. Even Baba is struggling to claim it.
That's good.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
So
right.
we were trying to figure out yesterday, why did the president not open the schools? Why did he delay that decision to reopen schools? The nation has sources who have told them why this happened.
Okay, tell us.
Sources said the president was not convinced that schools had implemented the required steps to enforce health protocols, including ensuring social distancing, and recent complaints by head teachers that congested schools were ill-prepared did not help the cause for reopening. It also emerged that the reopening dates had been agreed upon, and officials involved in the planning were taken aback by the president's announcement that they would not open just yet. Yesterday, senior officials of the ministry were summoned to State House, where they were given the green light to reopen universities and tertiary institutions.
These sources, they could have been from anywhere. That was clear.
Yeah.
We didn't need sources to tell them some of these things, man. It's clear that they were not ready for schools to open.
They did.
It is the headline. Sometimes, man. So this is the headline of The Nation. Why Uhuru refused to open schools. And as those that argue against such headlines say, all right, so you would expect that when you read this, you get a lot more detail. For example, it tells you that this is what was presented to the president, and then the president actually told the team that presented to him this report that this is what I'm not happy with. This, and the other. If the source was a source that was in a meeting, this is just sources said the president was not convinced.
So, I could have said that.
So what are you saying? I mean, what's the story saying?
Sources said that the
And
president
then it
felt
starts.
that he was
The rest of the story now goes back into what happened on Monday, Oh, the president said this on Monday. These words were different from those written in his speech released to media houses, which read, "In that regard, I therefore direct and order the Cabinet Secretary for Education to issue the calendar for the resumption of the 2020 academic year." Okay. So, the statement that had earlier been prepared for the president, which was circulated to the newsrooms, was not exactly how he said it at KICC. Because at KICC he said, "I call upon the CS for Education. Once we have agreed on the how, we'll thereafter immediately issue a calendar for the resumption of the academic year, if it is to be 2020 or if it's going to be 2021. Now, these sources, okay, I want to call this a clickbait story.
You know what?
It's not telling us.
I watched a movie once whereby journalists, you know how they say journalists never reveal their sources, okay? And this woman went through eternal purgatory, essentially until she was jailed. And it came out at the end of the day that her source was a child on a bus who gave her information about something that she had seen, which now segued to the story that caused this national uproar. So your source can be absolutely anybody, anywhere. However, it doesn't always mean that now it makes a story more weighty than it would have been.
Corroborate that
unfortunately,
information with
it's
another
never here or
source.
there.
Get a bit more detail.
A little bit more detail would have been
credence
fantastic.
to that story, because you're telling us why Uhuru played it safe on reopening of schools, and then you're just telling us
The source.
only once have you quoted this source saying he was not convinced.
Okay. Like I said, anybody could have said it.
Anyway,
So,
colleges are going to reopen from next week, which is, for me, that's a good thing.
okay.
It's okay. So you were saying you heard another story.
No, I just thought it would be interesting for you to note that whales too sing sweet love songs as we come to the end of the hour. Sometimes a whale just carries a tune. Just like human beings, the displays of affection with win hearts among creatures of the sea. Humpback whales, some of the largest sea mammals in the world, stand out among those who impress their mates with love songs. While they sound like salty soul, the repeated snorts, clicks, whistles, moans, grunts, blasts, and shrieks delight the females, are an object of fascination for experts and lay people alike. We know that it is whale season in the coast at the moment, and there are many people who are coming to see this. So researchers aren't entirely sure why whales sing, although most agree that it has something to do with courtship. And so you can hear these bellows in the sea around this time of year.
I can see a David Attenborough documentary on this.
Yeah?
And here he is, circling over the female,
The lone male
the lone male, belting
in a
a
herd of
tune,
cows.
belting a tune.
Okay. All right.
So only underwater divers can hear the songs clearly in Watamu. It is these sounds that marine conservationists and biologists are hoping will help them learn about humpback whale breeding sites in the southwestern Indian Ocean. There's much to learn about humpback whales and their communication. So far, it is understood that the male whale song improves reproductive success. And peaks around
Choice of
breeding
song
time.
or
Just
what?
the song.
Length of song. What is this?
Just the male song.
What's going to improve the success of one male against the other?
How you sing now?
Ah,
Opera
so choice of
versus
song.
Baba, it's called poetry.
Opera versus this thing. Think
The
about it.
lyrics.
Could apply to humans too. Right. So it also peaks around breeding time, and it's a type of courtship. It is also believed that the singing helps define territory with different whales.
I see. Okay. The continent lost $836 billion through illegal transfers. And this is according to UNCTAD, which is saying in the 15 years to 2015, a new report by UNCTAD estimates, compared with Africa's total external debt of $770 billion in 2018, this makes Africa a net creditor to the world. The illegal outflow of money is mainly related to the export of high-value goods such as gold, diamonds, platinum. Revenues are lost through corruption, theft, and tax evasion. Illicit financial flows rob Africans of their prospects, undermining accountability and eroding trust in African institutions. This is according to Dr. Muhisa Kitui, the UNCTAD Secretary General, when they were releasing this report. It's obvious, isn't it? corruption. Yatukula kila kitu sisi hapa. Yeah. City, you have an interesting headline, I'm sure.
Well, you know, there's so much to talk about.
Tell us about the daily business.
Okay. If you insist.
Okay, really?
In about a minute.
All right. Banks restructure 1.1 trillion loans on COVID cash woes. Kenya. Banks have restructured loans worth 1.12 trillion, or 38% of the total loan book, by the end of August due to the coronavirus-induced economic hardships. Right? Now, what this means is this. The banks have looked realistically at what the loan portfolios they hold, and they've realized that if they went about trying to realize what was their due in the manner that they normally do, it may not necessarily work. And that's where restructuring comes in. You now find ways of trying to ensure that A, the client is, one, able to understand what you're doing, and B, come up with a solution that the client can afford. Now, I don't know why it is, but this figure of 1 trillion keeps coming up. When we think of money that we are supposed to repay in terms of loans, this figure of 1 trillion comes up. When we talk
Kenyans owe banks 1 trillion.
trillion,
Kenya owes
whoever we borrow money from 1
1
trillion.
trillion.
What we need to sort ourselves out in the short run is 1
1
trillion.
trillion.
Okay. Yani, this 1 trillion, it is the magic number. Because clearly we've stopped talking about billions. in this
Billion is now small. What is billion?
country. Million, nobody even talks about it.
Billion I'll give you.
We've now entered the kingdom of the trillion.
Yeah, billion I'll give you. Kuja unione kesho asubuhi.
Yes.
And don't be late, 10 a.m.
On the dot.
If not,
I'll sort you out. How many billions do you want? Only 7. All right.
just
Keep it right here. The conversation continues in the next hour. You'll also be live on KTN Home. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, let's look at Nairobi streets this morning. At least for now, we have a hold up on Thika Road trying to get into the CBD today. Not as smooth as we'd like it. This seems to be the case. An accident has already happened, and yes, voila, just another one right around Survey. The service lanes are up and can be used right about now. You shouldn't have a problem with that, and it shouldn't clog up too much as you're trying to get into the CBD. Let's look then at industrial area. Those roads that are still closed, lending to some traffic, but it's not too terrible. Also, we're looking at some traffic on Mombasa Road trying to get towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and then through to Westlands. Okay, so this is what we see. Just getting into traffic hours, likely to get a little bit more clogged as we go along, but we'll let you know where you can find alternates. Let us know what you see so that we can keep it moving a lot smoother for people this morning. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
Two and a half minutes after 7 o'clock. Good morning.
The
How
only-
are you doing? Thank you very much for choosing Spice FM and KTN Home, and also logging online on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. The Situation Room broadcasts from Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi on Spice FM. And of course, now we are on KTN Home. CT Muga, as we begin this hour, please tell us today's proverb.
Today's proverb. You cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana.
That's true.
I'm waiting for you to ask me which monkeys I spoke to.
See monkey,
Monkey see monkey.
see monkey,
Monkey
see
they
mumu.
chop baboon. Monkey they walk, baboon they chop.
Okay, and then what about the bit where the monkey did do?
So when you say monkey, how do you say banana? You say banana.
Go away. Banana.
Banana.
I think it's banana.
And
Don't
honey.
mind him.
Honey is honey.
Honey, honey.
So you cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana.
Yes.
And you said you can even relate it with Kenyan politics. You cannot convince me that this banana that I vote for
Yes.
is worse than the honey that you're bringing.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as we segue into this hour's conversation, something happened in the Senate yesterday, and this is with regards to the managed equipment scheme report that was produced by this special Senate committee that investigated this for many, many months and produced a report. And it was being debated in Parliament for adoption. So what happened?
They rejected the report.
Who?
What does rejection mean here?
That essentially, whatever it is that you have told us,
Those
in this report,
recommendations,
those
yeah.
recommendations that you have given as a result of whatever investigations have been carried out, if they were, we say no. We reject. The
Meaning we don't
report.
believe you.
No, but of course, number one, we don't believe you, and it is not acceptable, and it will not then be put in as a conclusion to this entire scandal. Forget it. So back to the drawing
So
board.
essentially there was no scandal.
No.
Not
According
necessarily.
to the report, everything is hunky-dory.
Not
But
necessarily.
what they're asking for is to make it a lot clearer. You remember a few days ago when they said, you know what, it's time that you name names. Don't just tell us that this process was carried out. Who was involved? Who signed? Who was part of the process? The report doesn't involve some of these things, and they're demanding for some of these things to be.
And that
to be
demand,
put
I
in.
think, is appropriate.
I would
Because
say so
in
too.
all honesty, this thing of mentioning, say, for instance, the principal, what are they called?
Secretary.
Yes. Not enough. Not enough. You have a procurement department. You have the head. You have, and there are people whose functions are clearly demarcated. Tell us, who does this, who moves this from here to here?
You want somebody to be investigated, just say, investigate so and so.
Yes, because his job is this, and that job is what entails this and this and this.
And at the time of this supposed scandal, it was this individual who was sitting in this position.
Yes,
It can't
yes.
just be some amorphous
No,
description.
no.
Oh, you know, whomever. No, this individual, Nduh Okoh, sat in this seat, and it was her signature that went to this, which is what they're asking for.
Yes.
Clarity, pinpoint in terms of responsibility, not this.
Or take it even further. Ask yourself, in this particular department, this isn't the first time we have these issues arising. There are individuals here. Let's find out, how long has this person worked in this particular position? What do they actually do? All right? And you'll find there are one or two individuals who've never been transferred for the last 30 years. You ask, why has this person never been transferred or promoted?
Right.
Ask those questions and find out, because it isn't as though you don't know.
You know.
You know. And you know what each person does. Yes. Because if you throw the PS under the bus, that's not adequate. PSs come and go all the time. There are these people who never go anywhere. Who are they? What do they actually do?
What
Why
do
are
they
they being
know?
mentioned? Yes.
Yeah.
But they know everything. They're the ones who push the paper to the point where it gets to the PS for signing.
So basically, the senators rejected by a majority. They said, no, we are not adopting this report. Because, you see, adopting the report means that you agree with its recommendations, and therefore you say that, yes, what you have recommended as the next course of action then is what will forward to the executive and tell the agencies that you've actually said, here, you can use this to go ahead and open
So essentially, if
investigations.
the report is vague and you adopt it, you've adopted the vagueness also.
You've adopted the vagueness of this entire report. Okay. The details of it, the details are, it goes into quite some detail. But when it comes to, this is a final recommendation. So after everything has been said and done, what do we want to see happen next as legislators in our capacity and our constitutional mandate as watchdogs? They say investigations should be conducted. into everybody who was involved here. They say, the Auditor General should conduct a forensic audit.
Isn't that what they always say?
Of course. It just seems to be like one kind of slapstick solution to all of these reports that you get.
Yeah.
That, in case something, it doesn't make sense, let's conduct a forensic audit.
Did
And
we
then
not
from
hear
there
the
we
same
can answer.
thing
Then you
about-
wonder, do these audits ever take place? And does anybody ever follow up
When
after
the
the
governor
fact?
for Kirinyaga was brought in for questioning over the impending impeachment that she faced, was this not the conclusion that was arrived at? Everything was heard, and it was like, okay, let the investigative. It seems to be the conclusion for most of these things. However, good. So it means we're back to the drawing board?
Yes. Report. Window.
It could also
out.
mean that that thing is over, unless the Senate has told the committee, go back, we give you a fresh mandate, go and rewrite your recommendations. Unless they maybe create a new investigation, it could also mean that this thing is dead, or that hue and cry, it's over. We just now depend on Major Talib Mbarak and the EACC
to see if they'll
to
pick
at
up on
least
it.
come and just see if maybe perhaps
Well,
they could
then,
feel
help us.
sufficiently philanthropic.
we then have to
and-
look at the matter that Mutula Kilonzo Jr. mentioned, that there are people within the Senate, there are people within Parliament who have an interest.
Who have been compromised. Those are the words he used.
Yes, he used that word. Yes, he did. His exact words were compromise. But if you remember when we probed further, he said, yes, they are involved in the process of procurement themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's unfortunate, no?
Well, the thing is, at least it's a good thing that it's still making headlines. Today, the Nation has given it 2-page headline, 63 billion shillings MES heist, how mafia cartels executed theft of public funds. And it goes very well into one morning in 2014 when a powerful cabal at the Ministry of Health sat down at the headquarters in Afya House, Nairobi. It was slightly more than a year into the Jubilee administration, and everyone was still excited at what lay ahead under the new devolved system of government. The team plotted how to beat Kenya's stringent procurement laws and commit taxpayers 63 billion shillings in a project a Senate committee has since branded a criminal enterprise. So, basically what we're saying is what the senators who voted by majority were saying is, it's all back, but no bite. That report, it started by saying, as a matter of fact, we have established that this entire scheme was a criminal enterprise. And they go on into details of this is how it was executed, this is what we have
Essentially,
found out.
all what you're saying
And
is
then back,
we're being treated to
back.
drama.
And then the final part where they're supposed to bite, they're like,
They blow into
Too
it.
hot.
yes,
It's too hot. This one we can't touch.
we can't touch here. Let's move on into something else. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
The insistence of having something further done about this really, I think, needs to come into play because unfortunately, it will join the eternal library of something that we tried to sort out and then was never sorted out. Billions of shillings gone down the drain yet again that could have done something else for the country.
Yeah.
And if there's no insistence from the part of the Senate, if there's no goodwill, quote unquote, from the investigative agencies, unfortunately, this is another one that's just going to go down the drain. It's going to be just that. The MES scandal is something that you would have talked about, and you say, oh, well, years ago, there was this thing in the government, once upon a time, that they spent tens of billions of shillings on for procurement, or rather for leasing of medical equipment, and it'll be a story. That's it. And then it'll be the end. That's what's going to happen, unless there is insistence of making sure that something is done about it while the fire is still hot, while the iron is still hot, as it were. Because I just see this going down the drain, unless there is insistence and somebody picks it up and says, this one we have to get to the bottom
It's
of.
not so much if somebody picks it up. There has to be a need. If there is currency to be gained in picking it up, it can be picked up.
I really wish the need were
Public
that you
goods.
see money that is disappearing that could essentially help Kenyans. I wish that was the need then that would fuel any kind of action in this country. I really wish that the need would be that you see so many things that are undone in this country that these billions could actually sort out. I wish that would be the need that overrode everything else, from interest, to compromise, and all of these other things. And that it wouldn't be that there's something in it for me to come out shining like a star if I did something about this, but that you would see that you would stop this bloody cycle of draining money all the time, whereby the people of the country continue to suffer. I wish that was the need.
Isn't it unfortunate, though, that the institution that is given the mandate of oversighting the executive, the institution that has the power to conduct such an investigation and summon people, and they've summoned so many people to come before it, and you've sat down and created a report, isn't it unfortunate that we can even contemplate thinking that this is just going to be a sanitization process? Now, when a parliamentary committee or a Senate committee starts an investigation, you're already thinking, aha, so this is a cleansing process. It's just going to sanitize this whole thing. Yes, it'll come out, it'll mention names, it'll say things, but in the end, what really matters, the crux of it, is the recommendation. If that recommendation just comes in and just says,
but you get the impression that the whole exercise is a sales pitch.
It's a complete sales pitch.
And a complete waste of time at that.
No, not really a waste of time. It never is a waste of time, and this is where I think those who determine to profit from it, and this is where perhaps they miss out on. These things don't disappear, okay? They never really go anywhere. Now, you may think you've gotten away with it, and for the time being, it may appear so. The vagaries of politics are such that, unless you're God and you can tell me that you know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, all these things, this hanky-dory situation where you can steal as you like, you just get away with it as you like, you can bribe everyone as you like, assuming that is the norm. That is a fool's errand. It is not the norm. It may be the norm now, but if you think that it's going to continuously be the norm, that is where you are wrong. It never actually happens that way. It has never happened. It'll go on up to a point, and then the bow will break. It always does. And all that you require is perhaps a new government, and you'll be amazed at the things that come about. Yes. I wouldn't worry too much. I wouldn't worry too much. And why I'm saying I wouldn't worry too much is because with every blow, with every activity, the citizenry of this country gets smarter and better informed. Smarter and better informed. This idea that the citizens of this country are a group who are disempowered, have no say, don't know what to do. Anyone who thinks that way and is in elective politics, well, good luck to you.
So let's still keep the conversation on Parliament, all right? We know that the Chief Justice has advised the President to dissolve Parliament on this whole issue of the two-third gender rule and Parliament's role in it or lack of action in it, all right? Of course, the matter is now been taken back to court for proper interpretation. The Parliamentary Service Commission has taken this to court, joined by the Attorney General and the others. But the issue still remains that there is a requirement to have two-thirds representation, at least a two-third balance in elective positions. And we do not have a proper formula of ensuring that this actually does come to fruition when it comes to the Senate and the National Assembly. Attempts have been made by the National Assembly several times. Attempts are being made at the Senate to bring this to fruition. Then there are those that are arguing, no, the CJ was wrong in bringing this matter. There are those that are arguing the CJ is absolutely all right. I mean, he was just performing, like Senator Kipchumba Murkomen told us the other day, he was just performing an administrative role, just conveying the decision of a high court to the president. And the president then is expected to follow through with this. So where do we stand in this? And we still have to ask the question, even if we dissolve Parliament today, how shall we resolve this gender stalemate? What is the way forward? How do we actually ensure that we attain it? So let's bring in a member of Parliament who is a female member of Parliament, who is a lawyer member of Parliament, and this is Kandara MP Alice Wahome. She joins us on the line. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Morning, Eric. We are having challenges here, but good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Yes, we're hoping actually to get you on video.
Yeah, we will be doing that soon.
Okay.
But I'll give you another number.
All right.
Soon.
All right.
Yeah, but so that you can call through it.
Okay.
Now, let's say the question is very big and wide, But I think what is the solution today,
Yes.
considering where Parliament has found itself in regard to the dissolution advisory given by the Chief Justice.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I have had people, especially my colleagues in Parliament, condemning the Chief Justice and sending the wrong signals, as if the Chief Justice had an alternative. If you read Article 261, 6 and 7, you'll find that the Chief Justice hands, the way we say it, simply are tied. Because when it comes to the Constitution, interpretation can be one, and in this particular case, he has been asked, and the operative words is shall advise. The President. It doesn't say may advise. It says he shall advise the President to dissolve Parliament. Well, that's really almost the tail end. The tail end, of course, will come should the President decide to accept the advisory by the Chief Justice. Should the President not accept the advisory, then he will also find himself being accused of impunity, being accused not obeying the Constitution, and obviously because the President also has not been given an alternative. The only maybe window the President has is that the provision, the article does not say within what period the President should dissolve Parliament.
Okay.
But when you go to the Statute of General Interpretation, and I'm sure, Eric, you have heard this, it says it obviously has to be, the courts have interpreted that, guided by interpretation law, within a reasonable time, and reasonable time under all legal statutes is between 7 and 21 days. You could push it to 14 to 21 days.
Wow.
So obviously then, what is the alternative? Should we go that route? I am of the view that yes, we should dissolve Parliament because we cannot play around with the implementation of the Constitution. In my view, there is a small window. If the President wants to save Parliament, he can then ask the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya to move quickly and make the presentation of the bill back to Parliament. Forward it to Parliament, then within Parliament, then we can work maybe, and our constitutional amendment also has very strict provisions because you would have to work within 90 days.
Yeah, you
can't
hurry
do it earlier.
Yeah.
You can't have it earlier. But if we receive it, then there can be an excuse. Looking at the country and the constitutional crisis that we are likely to enter into, it would be understandable to have it in Parliament, but with an agreement by Parliament that there is no turning back. We would have to have the provision. There is nothing we are getting afraid of because the Parliament's obligation is to have the provision enacted. The legislative framework or a constitutional amendment to bring in the two-third gender. Once that is done, then the rest is left to we have discharged our obligation. Of course, then implementation is by the political parties and the IEBC.
So the question then comes, when we hear the Speaker of the National Assembly, for example, saying that this is not necessarily an obligation that was vested in Parliament, the National Assembly specifically, but on the state, is this an argument that holds water? Does Parliament really have an obligation to ensure that there is a legislative framework or whatever kind of framework, even if it's amendment to the Constitution, to ensure we get the two-thirds balance?
I don't know. The Speaker is wobbly, I think. I think because the Speaker, and with the greatest respect to our two speakers, they haven't been committed to this particular issue. You know why? I think they were hoping that the Chief Justice would never have those guts. It's always been a statement, no one would dissolve Parliament. The big head of Parliament, no one would dissolve. It is not the Chief Justice dissolving Parliament. It's the people of Kenya using the constitutional provisions that they put in, they wrote for themselves. So the state has an obligation because, of course, when you talk about the Attorney General, obviously the chief advisor of the advisor of the head of state.
Yep.
But the article the Chief Justice is referring to is Article 27 of the Constitution within the Bill of Rights. Article 27 is talking about administrative and policy frameworks and measures that the government may make to ensure that the gender issue is all round, being worked on and being implemented even in other areas of government. And of course, they coming up with policy to ensure that affirmative action is provided for within the government frameworks and organs. So that is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about coming up with a framework to ensure then that what we have written within the Constitution is actualized. We have already done 48 laws as written in the Constitution. Because every constitutional article, every article has, of course, most of these articles were also, supported by the statutory instruments that are supposed then to ensure that then you can move on.
Yep.
So when the Speaker is wanting to revert to Article 27, he is ignoring Article 81 of the Constitution, which is very clear that the election systems in this country must ensure that the principle, the gender principle in Article 27 is also actualized through our electoral process, and that is in Article 81, meaning no organ of government, no House of Parliament should have more than 2/3 of either gender. Has he addressed that particular issue?
Sure, definitely saying that it's an issue that must be addressed. But then look at just the last 5 years, or even 6 or 7, when it came to this particular debate. The law, or rather the Constitution, can say essentially whatever it has. However, those who are going to be drivers of these particular laws then must have the willingness to do so. And I see this gender debate or this gender issue as more than what is written down, but it has more to do with willingness of the parties to actually make sure it becomes active. And we're playing between the two. How are we going to reconcile where there are some who are willing, majority are not, vis-a-vis what it says in the law? How do you come to a nexus of the two?
You are saying there has to be goodwill. There has to be willingness of those supposed to have the duty to do it. My sister here, remember, a constitution is not a matter of choice. You don't do this other thing will happen. In this particular case, yes, Parliament can decide we are going to be wrong. We are not going to obey the Constitution. And the first thing we do when we get into Parliament is that we are sworn in to defend, promote, and protect the Constitution. So you can decide you will not do that, but then the operative instrument will be the same Constitution will say Parliament will be dissolved. You understand? So yes, we can put our hands off and say we will not do it. It's not achievable. You cannot force people to elect women. We are not saying you force people to elect women. We are saying you guide Kenyans through legislative framework of how to arrive at the principle they wrote in the Constitution. And it's not about choice here. It's about what Kenyans agreed and wrote. Even for us to arrive at this particular position, we obviously, the Constitution is a negotiated document. This is what women gained in all these arrangement of various rights and fundamental principles. We did secure this as women. Of course, the minorities secured theirs. Human rights secured what they wanted. Economic rights were also secured in the Constitution, isn't it?
It is.
Land rights champions also secured what they needed. Everybody, including ensuring that police brutality is also checked. That governance structure, the president had more power in the previous Constitution. Kenyans took back and distributed it in various
Institutions.
other arms of government, including commissions. So I'm saying we really don't have a choice, and we should stop this debate and do the right thing.
So
We
let's
have
take a
women
break,
and
Mheshimiwa.
men in this country. Yeah.
Let's take a break, and then we come back. We want to go into the choices that we then have. Now that it's taken us 10 years to get where we are, we still don't have, a light at the end of this tunnel. Then how do we actualize this ideal that we set for ourselves in the Constitution? This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Joining us on the line this morning is Alice Wahome, the MP for Kandara constituency. We are talking about dissolution of Parliament, or the solution that's required to attain the gender principle in elective positions. 28 minutes after 7. Time for us to take a break on KTN, home on Spice FM and online. We'll be back shortly after looking at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballad.
Nairobi is mostly cloudy this morning at 17 degrees. We'll see this overcast situation for most parts of the day, going to highs of 27 and then lows of 14. Njeri, light rain showers already happening at 16, going to highs of 25, and the rain is likely to last for most of the day. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 13, and chance of rain in the forecast. Thunderstorms will be the order of the afternoon in Eldoret today, highs of 21 and lows of 12. Kisumu's mostly cloudy at 19 degrees with highs of 26. There's a chance of thunderstorms. And rain will be the afternoon weather in Kakamega, currently at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 today. It's mostly cloudy in Mombasa at 24 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 23, and rains in the afternoon, as is what will be in Malindi, where it's currently partly cloudy conditions at 25. It'll go to a high of 28. Cloudy conditions at 19 in Kampala, highs of 25 and lows of 18 with thunderstorms later. There's some fog in Dar es Salaam at 23. It'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 22. And Joburg is cloudy at 13. It's going to be some rain today, 21 the high and lows of 11. And finally, for now, it still continues with heavy rain in Lagos at 28. This will be the high for today, coming down to lows of 23.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, so we still have some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning trying to get into the CBD today. Still continues to be the order of the day. We're going to see heightened levels again as the roadworks continue then between Bellevue and the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Okay, then getting into the city centre, right around the Huru Highway, there's still some clog up there. There's also heightened levels of traffic as you're trying to get into the CBD via Globe Cinema overpass. So let us know what it is that you see. If you're stuck somewhere, at least we can get it moving this morning. Also, the eastern and southern bypasses open without problems. Be careful right around where there's construction because the demarcation of roads continues. Okay, where are you stuck? Let us know. SMS this morning on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice everything.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
8 o'clock. The conversation continues right here on Spice FM, online www.spicefm.co.ke, and on KTN Home. We are joined by the Kandara MP Alice Wahome talking about this whole quagmire about realization of the gender debate. And just like Mheshimiwa said as we were going to the break, I mean, this is something that's expected of us in the Constitution. I mean, we put it there, and there's an obligation to parliamentarians to provide a way forward, to provide leadership. So even if we argue that, it's not clearly said that it's Parliament's role to come up with this formula, but Parliament as elected leaders of the people should be providing leadership. That's where I see it is, you have a role in providing leadership. They argue, some of them would argue that, this would require a constitutional amendment. So be it. Does Parliament have powers to introduce a constitutional amendment bill? Yes, it does. Has that ever come to the fruition, to the floor of the House? I haven't seen it.
We've often said that our Parliament is actually very partisan. And then when we saw the division within Jubilee, Tanga, Kileweke, we saw the handshake, those waters seemed muddied. But now with this debate of the two-third gender rule and the advisory thrown into the mix, suddenly there's a lot of clarity that I'm hearing. If I listen to the voices,
there's closing of ranks.
Yes, there are people who a week or two before that seem to have very differing views on certain issues. Suddenly on this particular matter, they are not talking a different language.
Yep.
No. So it's like our esteemed members of Parliament have actually reclaimed their role as champions of the not just the rights of the people, but the rights of the people as per the Constitution. Yes. All the hullabaloo that we've been dealing with and seems to have been put aside. And the back and forth, and even the differences I hear have to do with the law and the interpretation of it. Not partisan the positions that people have taken and which they are unwilling to move from. So even as we talk about changes, I think this particular advisory is bringing about changes that had not been anticipated.
Are we seeing those changes really not coming from a selfish point of view? Some could argue that, well, as long as it gives us the results that we want, it doesn't matter how selfish they are. But there are those that are arguing, look at the member of Parliament who are saying, yes, dissolve Parliament today. All right? So we start from the Women Brigade, and then now we also go into the Tanga, Jubilee, Asili, whatever you want to call them, Brigade, who are saying, yes, let's dissolve Parliament. Because they have a particular agenda that they hope to achieve using this particular move. And then there are those others who are saying, no, it was wrong. I mean, we cannot really dissolve Parliament now. You'd not even be having a solution. That's on the other end. So it's still not about getting us to a solution. It's about playing own political games.
Actually, no, Mheshimiwa has actually alluded to it very strongly. It is a serious wake-up call. No one. It is clear that our parliamentarians did not think we would ever get to the point where they're facing the possibility of having the august houses dissolved. No.
It was never an option.
It just didn't, yes.
It didn't actually come into the minds of most that
So-
it could be something that would happen.
And now that it's a reality, a pertinent reality, even the discussions, much as one could argue that there's one is a strong selfish leaning in the argument.
Yeah.
It's not the same argument. Because now you're making an argument with a reality that didn't exist before. And the reality is your job could come to an end sooner than you think, sooner than you planned.
It was very wise of the drafters of the Constitution to include that bit in the Constitution, because then it pushes and it gives them fresh impetus
It does.
to think beyond. You
Yes.
know, just like Mheshimiwa, you were saying that before this, everybody was saying, who can really, nobody can
would
dissolve
dissolve
Parliament. Who would dare? They were expecting that the Chief Justice would not have the guts to do this. But here we are. The Chief Justice has actually delivered the sword to the President.
Yep.
And it's just upon now this. However, the question that we would like to ask, Mheshimiwa, is how do we then get a proper solution to this issue of gender debate from your perspective? Is it something that can just be sorted out by a piece of legislation, an act of parliament, or would it require a constitutional amendment?
Now, who is that? Are we having there talking nicely there and saying yes? Now we have changed. We have become champions suddenly.
This is City
of the
Muga.
Constitution. Muga, you know,
Yes,
your colleagues,
Mheshimiwa.
your counterparts, male counterparts, have always counted us and said, look, you can't force us. And they even conspire. They would leave Parliament during the debate for the two-thirds gender bill. Right now, I can tell you, we are, even the calling for Kamkonji. I won't attend the Kamkonji myself.
Why?
Because we've done this thing too much. What I want is the bill to come to the floor, we debate, and we pass it. I think it is a good thing. It's a shocker. And not just a shocker to members of Parliament. It's a shocker even to the executive. It's a shocker to the country. I think there is a constitutional moment now for women in this country. Solution is bring the bill back to Parliament. And the President, if he wanted to be good to Parliament, and really he has no reason to be, if you ask me, possibly if he thinks that this Parliament is serving the executive properly, because of course there is no way the executive can move without the support of the legislative arm of government. Maybe he might be sympathetic. But he could decide to just drop the hammer on Parliament. You see, we are kind of joking a lot, because the executive also could reach a point where I'd say this Parliament, after all, has not been good to me. So, we are playing with like the sword of where,
This
and
is the sword of
sword
Damascus.
can fall.
Yes. Anytime.
It can fall, and many members possibly are not ready. The solution, I have said, is just not this debate. It's not to find some corners to run to or to avoid the provisions of the Constitution. The solution is to really do the right thing as we have been ordered by the people of this country. Let the bill come. Let the bill come. We pass it, and then we can worry about when will we have then the number.
But which bill?
These bills are there. The bills are there. The legislative bill, there is Duare 1, there is Duare 2, there is Duare 3. There are other bills which we dropped. It's just a matter of renewing them and publishing them one Friday afternoon. Today is Wednesday, correct?
Yeah.
If the executive wants to help Parliament, or if Parliament wants to help itself, is basically to come up with this bill. We also have a legislative department in Parliament. We have the legal department. It's a matter of working on it, renew the bill, take it for publication, and we have it fast track.
Are we saying that the grounds upon which those bills were rejected, first, second Duale, third Duale, and all the other bills, were only because of lack of goodwill from members of Parliament, such that even if we brought in Duale 1 today, then it has all the merits it can pass.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know what, Eric? This is the truth or the elephant in the room. The more women you have on the floor of that house or in parliament, the more you create spaces for women, and eventually these spaces are supposed to expand the competitive ability of women, to enhance the competitive ability in political quotas for women, so that then we can run either, for the same positions. If it is governors, and you have women also competing competitively. If it is the single membership, like the one I occupy, then obviously we expect that there will be more women. So more numbers of women in parliament means less space for men in parliament, and that's really the elephant in the room. So they wouldn't support. It is not because the bill was flawed. It's not because the bills were not good or were not answering and giving a solution. We gathered up to 195 votes the first Duare 1. Duare 3 was disaster because, not really disaster, because we still had 174 votes the last time we made a good attempt. And that's really not very bad. What I'm saying, we needed 233. So from 195 to 233, you can see we had worked very hard. We missed about 40 or about 38 votes.
Mheshimiwa, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that if, for instance, tables were turned and the reverse was true, in that, for instance, the number of male members of parliament was equivalent to that of the female parliament currently, and the number of female parliamentarians was that equivalent to that of the male currently, that we would have a better parliament?
It's not about we would have a better parliament. We would have a fair parliament. You understand? We would have an equitable parliament, because this country is not for men alone. This country is for men and women. So it would be a fair and equitable parliament. It would be an inclusive parliament. It also needs to have more youth. Women, more youth who are men.
Actually, I suspect I didn't ask my question well. I agree with you about the two-thirds gender rule. What I'm talking about, if just by virtue of the elective position, the women were the majority in parliament and roles were reversed, so that it's the men who are now fighting for the things that women are fighting for the same two-thirds gender rule. That is the question I was asking. Would we have a better parliament? That's really the question I'm asking.
You are asking me to give quality to women, and
yes, I am.
refuse to be boxed. I refuse to be boxed into that.
Yes.
Women and men are brought up in the same society.
Yes.
So I can't guarantee you that we'll have a better parliament, but I'm saying we will have an equitable parliament, because men and women, whatever color they are Kenyans, and they are entitled to that space and equal opportunity. So it's then up to Kenyans to make sure that members of parliament, both male and female, do their work and do it properly. Work for Kenyans, not work for ourselves, not work for the executive. So to that extent, then, we would have a better parliament. Because if it is equitable, if it is inclusive, I think it would be okay. But I refuse to come up with a different standard or yardstick for women, because it's not fair. I want the same standard for men and for women.
Sure. I mean, it's definitely the way. I mean, if it were to be put in a book, it would be put exactly that way, Mheshimiwa. But if we look at the reality on the ground, unfortunately, we're dealing with so many things that then compound this problem. The cultural, the traditional, the mindset that would stop this thing from being achievable. So, I mean, I'm still on that point to say that, Parliament could be dissolved. But is it then an assurance that we're going to begin to institute some of these vital things when it comes to governance in this country and the equitability that you talk about? Can we be sure that it will attract those results?
You say, I think people have asked, so if you dissolve parliament, shall we have more women in the next parliament?
Right.
Article 261 does not say that you have more women in parliament by dissolving parliament and having the next parliament. What it anticipates and has written there is that the next parliament, after dissolution of this one, then we will start as its first business enactment of this legislative bill. And it's not just this one. Actually, even if there was any other that was not completed, the same result would be expected. You see, because there were time frames within which we needed to do it. And where there were no time frames, then Parliament was still obligated to ensure that the legislative framework is done. In this particular case, women and civil society and LSK have gone to court to say, look, you haven't done what you are required to do in this respect. The two-third gender bill is still unattended to. Why haven't you done it?
Yep.
You know, which route should we go? So, yes, the next parliament may not have the numbers we want, but it will do the right thing. It will come up with a framework. The framework will then bring the women on board. You understand?
Yeah.
That's the difference. Yeah, so the obligation of the next parliament would be to deal with this particular bill as the first agenda, finish it, and go to the next. And then, of course, after the bill is done, political parties and IBC will bring women on board.
Mheshimiwa, we know that there are some interpretations that are being sought in court over this particular matter. But I just want to ask your opinion, your understanding of the law. If we went into, let's call it this dissolution of parliament, will the new parliament then come in and start a fresh term that has to run for 5 years? Or will it be like a by-election where they're just coming in to complete the term?
Once a dissolution of parliament goes, it's not a by-election. You go for elections for a new parliament. So 5 years, yes. 5 years. So that is what is anticipated in the Constitution, because you know, once you have dissolved parliament, you can't talk about election. If I resign, then we would be talking about one position or 2, 3 positions.
Okay.
And you see, actually, there are people who are asking, the president, who I respect a lot of my society, law society, had said that I'm willing to resign. To resign so that I can assist in this implementation. No, I don't think that is the route to go. The dissolution, it's not individual. It is not directed at individual members. It is directed at the entire institution of parliament. Yes, yeah.
So if the new members then come in to serve a fresh term, would that also then require
a fresh term? Yeah.
Amendment of the Constitution that recognizes a general election on the second day of August after the last election, the second Tuesday of August?
Okay, that could be one or two small gaps. But you see, when you talk about 261 saying Parliament will be dissolved, you resort to the same, the articles of the Constitution, sometimes are read together with the other. You don't just read one.
Okay.
You read this one and then you look at any other supporting. So once you dissolve Parliament, you revert to the provisions that says you then have to set up another Parliament. There are provisions of how you go to elections if there is no Parliament. Yeah. Irrespective of the fact that it is a Tuesday or whatever, when we wrote that one, we never said it has to be then a Tuesday. Because if you dissolve today, then it is not possible to have a Tuesday. This would be a new election and therefore would have to have a different date, not a second Tuesday of August every 5 years, or within the 5 years of the general election.
Right, even as you look at the mechanics of all of this, Mheshimiwa, and say that, according to the law and what, legislation says, and, we've already looked at, the societal mindset then when it comes to women in leadership and in governance.
Patriarchy,
Right, the patriarchy is real.
Patriarchy is real.
Right, so even as we are looking forward to this, we often talk about, even girls' education. The only time that it was seen, the benefits of sending girls to school was when the decisions were actively made by fathers sending their girls to school. Then others caught on and said, okay, we can actually benefit, all of us can benefit collectively from this thing. Do you feel that a forced action, putting women in these positions and then seeing the benefits would then lead to the results that we are hoping for. Can you relate between the two examples and say that such a thing, if you don't force it, you won't see the benefit, and on their own, people are not going to make the decision to put women in these positions? Is a forced action the way to go about?
You see, if we have a problem, you have to find a solution to address a problem. If you look at the countries that have made major steps towards empowerment of women, be it politically, be it socially and economically, Western and even here in Africa, even America, the education has been key in bringing women on board, because obviously an educated woman is literally empowered to handle many of these challenges of where you need to have a similar or equal platform to be able to compete. Because you see, even if it is resources, if it is employment, if it is debate, if it is discussions, if it is ensuring that your family is the same as the other family, you need equal platforms. You need to be able to say, yes, I have this education for my girl or for my daughter or for my son. So I think that if you look at the education itself, our education system in this country, it does recognize that some areas in the country are not the same in terms of development or opportunities, or even income levels are different. And therefore, you'll find that even entry points have been lowered, both at the secondary level and even at university level, because the kids have not been exposed to the same facilities. Why did we do that? Because we recognize marginalization is real. And therefore, for women who have been stopped by maybe their parents do not give them the same value, even today, you will know that there are girls who will be taken through FGM so that they can then be married early, and as soon as they go through the initiation, 13 years, they are said to be ready for marriage. So you see, it's not the same when you then take a boy to school and you leave a girl to be married at 14 years. I think that,
Well,
so the connection between education is real, and it does give better opportunities and better platforms, fairer platforms, equal platforms. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Asante sana for joining us this morning, Mheshimiwa Alice Wahome, MP for Kandara constituency. I know we had some challenges in getting you on video, but hopefully next time we'll
you know, I'm in charge. I think a few things were not right.
Okay, we can blame it on technology, not the user.
No, it's both.
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 All right, thank you very much and have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Eric.
Asante.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
This conversation continues in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. I'd like to remind you about the waiver offer by the Nairobi City County government, which of course has come up with this waiver offer for defaulters of land rates, which expires on the 15th of October. You only now have 15 days and counting. If you'd like to take advantage of this waiver, and you should, go to City Hall Cash Office or the Makadara Cash Office or the Times Tower ground floor banking hall, obtain an invoice, go to Cooperative Bank or National Bank, or you can go to the web portal, or that is epayments.nairobi.go.ke, and a mobile app, NCCG ePayments, and pay. Take advantage of this offer before it expires on the 15th day of October. It's 4 minutes to 8. We'll be back shortly. This is The Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
I was saying it sounds like it's the president to either feel, like he likes this parliament and then gives them a helping hand, or he doesn't like the parliament and dissolves it. It's one or the other.
Doesn't like it, or would
If he
go
feels
with
it's not serving my interests,
or
go.
the interests of Kenyans. Those are two different things.
My interest and the interest of Kenyans.
Yeah, two
Of course.
two totally different
I
things.
was specific.
Either way,
Who says?
it's entirely in his hands.
They're not necessarily
The same thing.
same.
The interest of Kenyans and your personal
From a
interest.
politician's perspective, what is my interest is the interest of the public.
It starts with that.
Yeah.
My interest
So
is
that-
Is
therefore
actually, yeah,
Yes, it has to be. Because
interest
I
of the
represent
public.
their interest.
in thought.
okay. So not necessarily that the public interest is necessarily my interest.
No.
Okay.
No. You get it
I am
right.
not public. So, what do you hope the president does? Or you sit there and you're saying, Haki, if I was Uhuru.
The president is a politician. He's going to dangle this thing. Opportunities don't get better than this. They certainly don't. All the people in the civil society space who've been calling President Uhuru a dictator, they've been calling him whatever name they have chosen. Well, he has the power to be that right now.
He has the opportunity, right?
He has the power. He actually has. And it has been handed over to him by our constitution. And you know why it's been handed over to him? Because the very lawmakers have been dilly-dangling and
Instead of doing their job.
Yes, instead of doing their job, they'll be doing whatever else they've been doing. And now they have brought this upon
Now we are
themselves.
where we
Perfect
are.
example of what you say actually comes to pass.
Yes.
All right. Let's have another conversation in the next hour. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM. Kisumu.
Okay, so Mombasa Road today is for tears. People are actually crying on the road because it's a mess, guys. All the way from Mlolongo, getting then down towards Syokimau, after that Cabanas, and then to General Motors. Absolute mess, and it is chaos. It's a catastrophe is what it's being called. Okay, very many adjectives used to describe this today. Been stuck in one spot for over 50 minutes all the way to the airport. All right. The southern bypass, after that, you're going to need some patience. Let's look outside of the city now, and the Suswa Maimahu area. There is a holdup, and it's been there for 2 hours for some reason. The angry residents have taken to the streets because we don't know. We'll have to find out the reason why in a short while, but there is traffic. There is a jam for kilometers on that road. Okay, guys, use the service lanes on Thika Road if you can. Talk to us on 40127. Send us a message there in case you find an alternate route in some of these areas where you're stuck, or if you're stuck somewhere, we can help you find an alternate route.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Spice FM broadcast on 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, 97.7 in Malindi, 96.0 in Nakuru, in Eldoret it's 96.7, Njeri 90.9, and we are also live on KTN Home for the next 1 hour, and we are also live on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Our numbers 0719 012 600 and our SMS line is 40127. That's 40127 for SMS. So early this morning, Sleepy Joe and Donald Trump, the Donalds, had live presidential debates. This is Joe Biden and the President Donald Trump. And of course, it took 1.5 hours, televised, watched globally by very many people. And at the end of it, very many commentators have just basically said, that just went south. It went south. It went south because of how the president conducted himself during the debate, interrupting Joe Biden. It's his turn to answer questions, hogging the limelight, hogging the time that was allocated to him and then to his opponent, Joe Biden, the kind of responses that he was giving. I'm looking at an article here by the Los Angeles Times. The first paragraph, the intro to the story. Well, that was ugly. Full stop.
Yeah.
Second paragraph. After a series of world-shaking events, President Donald Trump and the Democratic challenger Joe Biden grappled face-to-face, sort of, in their first presidential debate on Tuesday night, a scabrous spectacle that held out the prospects of dramatically upending their seemingly immovable contest. Basically saying, people who watched that, they dug up and, held on to their stands.
Right.
And what their opinion of the two leaders was before.
Right.
Nobody is likely to have been swayed by the performance of either.
Which is what essentially a presidential debate should. You should, if someone's mind up until that debate had been a certain way and your point was to change their mind, the debate then was the channel for you to do this. Okay? But what it was and what it looked like was a lot of mudslinging. There was a lot of name calling. There was a lot of things that you wouldn't expect from two gentlemen of this stature. You wouldn't expect.
And that stature is?
Presidential. Come on. There's a certain wherewithal that they would have, a certain way in which they would carry themselves. What you would think, or what
perception here.
That's what I was going to say. It's a perceived notion of how they should carry themselves out is what didn't come out, which is what has led to all of these comments that we are getting today. That's what the LA Times says. CBS says, for example, that it featured a chaotic series of bitter exchanges and name-calling, with the president repeatedly speaking over his rival and the moderator struggling to maintain control of the 90-minute affair. "Will you shut up?" An exasperated Biden said in a comment that was emblematic of the tumultuous nature of the debate. It's hard to get a word in with this clown, which is what he said. You wouldn't normally hear things like this coming out of Biden's mouth. But it happened during this debate.
Would you say the man spoke from the heart?
This is the thing. Now, it is that what the personal sentiments of the other individual came out here, which, and more often than not, during the 90 minutes, which you normally wouldn't hear in another
and why is this a bad thing?
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but this is why I think that you're hearing these statements that have come out, is that the debate then did not fulfill what a debate ordinarily is intended to fulfill.
It was not issue-based.
It wasn't issue-based at all.
It just
was
became
an
a
attack on
shouting
personalities. That's what it was.
It became like a Kenyan parliamentarians thingy.
How do you distinguish between a debate that is issue-based and a mudslinging debate?
Well, this is one where you have a moderator who has a set of questions and they have already been told this is what we're going to focus on, all right? And then somebody is asking a specific question. What is your view on this and that? Or what is your stand on this particular issue? Person starts, goes off, this other one comes in, forget about him, it becomes a shouting match. For example, listen to what was happening. One of these clips, courtesy of C-SPAN. This is what was happening during that debate.
You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now. Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question because the question is radical left. Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
So, what do you make of that then, CT?
Oh, it's a delightful debate.
You like it, eh?
Was that an issue-oriented conversation?
Yes, it was an issue.
They were talking about packing the Supreme Court issue or filibustering on the same. That's where it all started from.
You see, when we have this academic perspective of what issues are, we sort of like talk roads, health, the army, business issue, okay? But remember, these issues are discussed and determined by individuals. So when you have individuals showing us their true color, you really have a real issue discussion here, because you then have an opportunity to decide which of these two crazies do I think should be the president. Yes, exactly.
So he basically just reduces each of them into a crazy.
Actually, if you're shouting, how do you tell who is making more sense than the other? If they are both sort of like shouting at each other and calling each other names, how do you determine this?
Someone is asking, saying, I'm not going to answer, just shut up.
Yes, it actually becomes a very juvenile contest. And personally, I'm actually happy to listen to it. It's pleasant because...
It's entertainment for you.
No, it's not entertainment. There's an element of entertainment, but that's not what comes to the fore. What comes to the fore is what these people are made of. So, if you are thinking of electing a leader, then you need to ask yourself, what sort of leader? And this debate is telling you this is a sort of leader that you have. No pretenses, nothing. When things get thick, when things get tense, this is what comes out of their mouths. So this is what you have. Yes. So the decision-making process as to who should be a leader is actually made easier. That's why I said, since they're both shouting, which of these two crazies do you prefer?
Well, okay, so if we're looking at issues, if you're looking at those issues that you mentioned before, and then looking at what both of them had to say, anybody could find that one had merit or the other had merit.
Believe me, there are people
right?
who love what they're hearing on either side.
So now you get to know the personality of an individual when that person is angry or upset, not just on a presidential debate, anytime. It's like they say, when somebody is angry or drunk, that's when you know the truth about how they really feel, right? In this case, people's tempers flew. And you get to know how they would rule or how they would decide on something when it came to the point where it was really hot in their minds. So earlier on, when I said that, a debate or a presidential debate was to either sway one's mind in one direction or another on how they felt about particular issues, whether it was the Supreme Court nomination or whether it was jobs in America or whether it was the immigrants issue, those things that continually pop up. Perhaps the way an individual really feels, because you see them getting annoyed right at the podium, would then segue into how this individual essentially would lead.
Yes. So, you want to ask the question, is it Biden who sort of like became more like Trump, or are we now seeing the real Biden? And so he and Trump are really not that different. What exactly are we seeing?
Or are you seeing that Trump did the right thing, quote unquote, by showing who he really was from the beginning and letting you know that everybody else is just like me? I am the only one then who has the audacity to show it on a public podium.
Trump has the disadvantage in the sense that he's been president. So we've seen him for what he is for quite some time.
This is it. And he's not been shy about it, ever.
No, he hasn't actually changed. He's consistent.
He's been constant and consistent, yeah.
Now, there is the persona, there's the image that we were led to believe
of
represents
the United
Biden.
States leader.
Yes, exactly. Now, unfortunately, that particular bubble, Trump burst it a long time ago. Okay, he's just Trump. He doesn't fall into any box that one may have set for the so-called supreme leader of the people of the America. Okay, he's just Trump. Now, Biden seems to have realized that perhaps that is the way to go. So he is becoming Biden stroke Trump, because the way we hear Biden responding to everything. It is something that we characterize President Trump with. Not Biden. But then, Biden hasn't been president. So we haven't had an opportunity to have him in the full glare of the public as we have had Trump. But these debates, when you talk about issues, if you ask me, they get to the heart of the matter. We are actually seeing the real issues coming up. Who are these people really? Trump, we have an idea. He's been very good about it. He's shown us with clarity and hasn't deviated from the norm. And he has, even in this debate, he has not deviated from the norm.
So he's real.
He heckles. I don't think he has the ability to pretend about who he is. I don't think he knows how to. Why should he? He's letting.
He may know how to, but he may not want to.
From the very beginning, he spoke the mind of a good percentage of Americans who never actually said it in the open.
Yes.
Americans who said, immigrants, get them out of here. They have no business being in our country. Americans who said, yes, we believe in the Star-Spangled Banner and we want that greatness to come back to us. Speaking their mind. He came and he spoke it for them. People who stand on the podium or stand on the platform of elective politics in the United States and feel that they can say whatever they want because of that position, and coming down to say, well, at the end of the day, you're just a human being and this is what I know. I know you cheat. I know you listen into people's phone calls. Saying it in public for people to understand that this is exactly what is going on. So here you have a public of a personality who is standing and speaking the things that a great percentage of Americans actually feel. Suffice to say that they never really had somebody like that.
You actually can't call Trump hypocritical.
No. He's always said what he said.
You may not like him, you may not like the things he says, you may have your own ideas, but you can't call him hypocritical. In fact, what you can blame him for is being too basic.
Yeah.
Just surely, pretend a bit. And you know why? It tells you that we expect our leaders to pretend a bit.
Yeah,
but also being too basic. Decorum.
Is he being too basic without substance, or is he being too basic in terms of just breaking it down into the ordinary talk?
He breaks it down and he's offensive. That is where I think the problem arises.
It doesn't sit too well.
It doesn't sit too well with those who expect it to be said in a certain way, but it also sits very well with those who expect it to be said as it is.
Exactly. Like, for instance, one issue that has come up over and over again is what one says. He doesn't come out openly and say something that would consider as a censure for white supremacists. He doesn't. So the option that one is left with is that he supports white supremacists.
Today he was asked by the moderator, Chris Wallace, to condemn white supremacists and militia groups. He said, sure, I'm willing to do that.
And that was it.
So he was told, then do it, sir. He was like, just stand back and stand by.
I will.
I'm willing to do it.
So, I mean, there are things that he would say. Questions that he's been asked in the past. For example, he says, you never really embraced religion, but then you find that, people would want you to embrace it in that way. And then he said, I like the Bible. I've read certain parts of it. I like it. It's a good book. Same thing. I'll condemn it. I don't like white supremacy. Basic like that. I don't like it. He's not going to go any deeper. He's not going to bring out some philosophical argument for you to then
I wouldn't do it either. I mean, if I know that this is where I'm
going to say it as it is and this is what it is. However you choose to accept it, that is totally up to you. But he has put it out there. He has said it. Coronavirus came, he said, this Chinese flu. It's these China people who've brought it here for us. We were fine before they came in. And you would have journalists and reporters and analysts and commentators who would say things and basically tell him, you can't speak in this manner. And he would say, why not? They brought it here. It's a Chinese flu. That's what it is. According to him, that's what it is. But guess what? There are very many Americans who believed the same thing. If we didn't have people crisscrossing and coming into our country, we would never have gotten this disease.
Then he took the issue of employment. They took our jobs away. Now that one hit a lovely nerve. It resonated. Our employment is because these people have taken our jobs. They've taken the jobs to China. So we can't have them here in America.
Yes.
And you know something? Right now with COVID, what is going to happen? That mantra that may have sounded completely outlandish. Very many countries in the world are realizing that even if it means producing in our own backyard and it's expensive, let us do so. We can't find ourselves in a position where we are almost completely reliant on some other nation doing things for us. No. We will do business, we will have some, but Right now, countries are shutting down factories, businesses are shutting down factories that they had in China. Because of that particular reason. So if you think and look at it from that perspective, you'd realize Trump, much as you may not like the way he speaks and the way he sounds,
his thought is not in isolation.
No, it isn't in isolation, and it isn't as nonsensical as some people try to make it.
As unpalatable as it sounds to most people, again I say he is saying and breathing what a lot of people refuse to. And for those that find it, okay, I don't really want to hear this, you'll find that even with the Biden option, unfortunately, with polls that have been done, there's that word again, polls, with polls that have been done, people are not necessarily going to vote for Biden. They're going to vote for the option that is not Trump. You see what I'm saying? Because of the fact that
they're voting out Trump.
They're voting
not
out
voting
Trump.
in
They're not
Trump,
voting in Biden, for example. Because they wanted an option that was not this person who's going to be so crass in terms of some of the things that he says, but it turns out to be the reality for quite a number of people. I mean, if you look at what is looked at the Hicktown, Midwest United States, the people who live on the stoop, who sit there and say, yeah, these Mexicans come in and taking our jobs and these, I mean, that's what they really feel. And here's somebody who's standing on a platform and saying it in public. Are you not going to vote for it?
You know, I'm thinking of our own political matters and the mudslinging that took place during our time. God Almighty. Then people call each other names.
Yes. This is what happens. I mean, this is, but now this is the reason why it's being, looked at it differently in America is because they had positioned themselves in a different way. You know, in fact, during that whole
certain things?
During that whole back and forth, you hear Biden saying, this is not presidential. Who determined what is presidential? I'm the president, you're not.
It's the same way in Nairobi. It's the same way in Nairobi. See him as whatever you want to see him, but the governor of Nairobi didn't fit the bill. He didn't fit into this box that had already been predetermined by a certain part of the society who said it's not gubernatorial to dress in this way, to speak in this way, to speak in Shang. But guess what? Resonated with over 800,000 people. He's speaking the mind of these people. He's doing the things that these people would like him to have. So this box where you would have ticked that you thought people should fit in, guess what? The people whom you're going to rule over are telling you something totally different.
Actually, if you bring it to the present discussion about the DP and what he's doing, you may say what you want, you may say what you like, but he seems to be resonating with a certain group of people in the country. And resonating well. You can say, well, they keep going to that. Well, yes. When you're invited, you don't necessarily have to attend. It's not as though you're being forced to go there.
Yeah.
These people are going to his place willingly. They're attending his rallies willingly. So, sometimes there is a norm that we perceive and we keep stating to be the standard by which everybody must abide and must conform to. And the question has to be asked, whose standard? Whose norm? And these people, who are they? And what are their demographics? What do they represent in terms of the people of this particular country? So, if you ask me, whatever the angst is against President Trump, it needs to be clearer. What are people really angry about? What is it that they don't like about Trump? Is it the way he speaks?
His tope, his
the
hair,
things he says.
His actions before he was president.
Exactly. Now, so when you're saying this, you are saying, are you telling me that the other presidents don't think the way he thinks? Are we crucifying him because he speaks things that other people would be unwilling to say? What is it really? What is the issue here? Now, in this particular matter, Kenya has led the way. And we've shown how to come to a middle ground. Because with our elections, people have called each other lovely names.
That have stuck till date.
Yes, from witch doctor to thief to what. They haven't held back. But they have shaken hands.
And the voters haven't been swayed by whatever you guys call each other.
That's not, that's yours. And that they consider as pure entertainment.
Part of it, yes. We're going to be showing you on the screen what Trump immediately tweeted. He put up a photo of himself. It was Trump versus Biden and Chris Wallace, the moderator. And that is on Donald Trump's own tweet. Abiliota will tweet that on our Spice FM KE handle, and then we're also going to project it on the screen so we can show you. Keep it right here. We want to take a break now at 22 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, on KTN Home. We will be back shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice
It's
FM.
full overcast in Nairobi at 18 degrees. We've got highs of 27 today and lows of 14. It'll be quite chilly, Nairobi standards. Light rain showers occurring in Njeri. Currently at 17 degrees. We'll go to highs of 25 and lows of 14. It's partly cloudy in Nakuru at 16, going to highs of 24, and rains in the afternoon. It'll be thunderstorms in Eldoret later. Highs of 21 and lows of 12. Kisumu at 19 degrees is mostly cloudy. Highs of 26 and lows of 19. Kakamega mostly cloudy at 18 degrees, going to highs of 24 and lows of 15. And showers expected later on. There'll be showers expected in Mombasa as well, going to highs of 29 and lows of 24. And Malindi also will experience showers with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Kampala 25 with a high today and lows of 18 with thunderstorms expected later. Dar es Salaam mostly sunny at 25. Those sunny conditions will last through most parts of today. Highs of 31 and lows of 23. Johannesburg is cloudy at 13. We'll go to highs of 21 and lows of 11. And showers will go throughout today. It's still heavy rains in Lagos at 28. That'll be the high, coming down to lows of 23.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Traffic.
Okay, things have gotten crazy on Thika Road trying to get to the CBD. We've had a number of people who've had to abandon their vehicles and then take a quicker route or quicker option into town by way of Piki border. Because the traffic is just not moving today. I feel for you guys. I just don't know what the problem is. So Thika Road is a mess. Parking lot situation on Mombasa Road all the way to Bellevue today. And at this point, and then beyond that even gets worse because then Uhuru Highway between Nyayo Stadium Roundabout and Westlands is bumper to bumper. I not lie you. And then outside of the city, the Suswa Maimahiu Road has been blocked by locals for some reason for going on 3 hours now. No law enforcement in the area as yet, and hoping that is being sorted out. There's crazy jam then also. Avoid Jogo Road, avoid Juja Road if you can. We'll try and look for where it is at least smooth and let you know. Let us know also. 40127. That's the SMS number.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and on www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. What did you make of the first U.S. presidential debate? Happened early this morning, Kenya time. It was in Cleveland. Just like we're saying, many media commentators have come in and said, hey, political commentators have just said, this was seriously a farce. It was just everything else but what we've grown to see and to expect of a debate. It was a shouting match. It was, interruption between the speakers. It was
But they were speaking.
Over.
They were speaking.
They spoke.
And you could hear what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it told you volumes. Those manicured speeches that you normally hear don't tell you anything except what they want you to hear. This one, for once, you're hearing things that no one actually intended you to hear, but you have a front row seat and you can actually hear it. I mean, having said that, consider that those who oppose President Trump also do have a perspective and a view, and it isn't drawn from nothing.
No, it isn't. And I think Biden also represented some of those views today when he said that Trump is the worst president America has ever had. And he blamed him for bungling the response to the COVID pandemic and fueling racial divisions amid recent protests against police brutality when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement that is going on now. And he said, and I quote, this is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred and racist division. It could have been that he said this as a result of what Trump had earlier said to him about two of his sons, where one has issues to do with drug abuse and the other is currently working in Ukraine. And we know that the entire U.S.-Ukraine relations have been a bit prickly, if that's what you want to use.
They were not always prickly.
They were not.
Yes.
However, he had blamed Biden, or rather called out Biden for his son being involved in that process and says, what kind of a father are you? So he went pretty low in terms of digging at him. What kind of a father are you that allows your son then to get into issues with drugs and becomes a drug abuser? He also went on to say that you either graduated the lowest or among the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me, Joe. This is what President Trump said. Did you use the word smart? That's what he attributed to Biden at some point.
You see, the thing is, remember, this is a new dispensation. And I think part of the reaction is the reaction we have whenever our conformity is disturbed or when it's challenged. Because what you then look to, you suddenly realize, wait a moment, what exactly are we seeing? Because what you've moved from represented something that you liked, and it put you on a certain pedestal, and you were a certain type of people collectively. But again, it's the associative nature of this. What we are hearing is what third world banana republic types like ourselves are supposed to be associated with. And it doesn't go down well that people who are superior, people who are of a more advanced humanity,
living in the first world,
okay, being compared in such a manner, especially the leadership that is supposed to encapsulate the very being of the people, being brought down
the
to
very
this,
spirit of greatness,
yes, being brought down to this level.
They're such high pretenders, though. All those things that we're saying about, the direct attacks from Trump to Joe Biden, those direct attacks have also been directed at Donald Trump. In fact, if you look at what the Democratic campaign is doing, it's not necessarily focusing on Trump's 4 years in office and his performance as a president.
Trump the person.
It's Trump the person. They personalized it. So when you get the dose of exactly what you've been serving, what's your issue?
But then brings a question.
Don't use the word smart with me, Joe.
The person is right. The person becomes a president wherever you want to look at them on the globe. But can you really remove the person from the president?
You're supposed to.
You should, quote unquote. But then we're clearly seeing it that personalities will come out, whether the individual is presidential or not. And we often remove humanity from an individual who then becomes president, hoping that they have some kind of godlike quality, which is impossible for a human being.
Yes.
Okay? Now, in this case, this is who Trump is. this is who Joe Biden is. Because Trump became president, can you remove who his person was? Because then he has taken on the status of presidential.
No, you can't. But then that is why there are all these people who are employed by that
sit around
structure
you,
of theirs.
who guide you,
who are supposed
to guide and advise you on how to carry
trim
yourself.
It, manicure it, present it in a way that is easy to not just chew but also to digest. The issue here is that this one is difficult to digest. Things that are considered prickly, thorny, troublesome, the man just wades into it, not even feet first, head first. Okay? And then words follow. And the words that follow are the sort of words that one didn't expect. They are not words that supposedly bring peace. If anything, they create even more chaos. All I'm saying is that a presidency, by its very nature, is actually premised on certain norms. Now, these are the norms that, unfortunately, from what we read and see, the Trump presidency seems to have gone out of its way to ensure that it decimates.
Look at the things that he's stuck on.
It becomes a people's presidency.
Look at the things that he's stuck on, or that he's stuck on until now. Immigration, right?
Hasn't moved.
One of the big things has never moved from that. Okay, come a little bit more recent with the whole Black Lives Matter movement. Have you heard him coming out on several occasions in public to condemn some of these acts that have been meted against black men?
The things he has said with regards to that.
Have you heard?
You wonder, goodness gracious me,
right?
Who advised this person to say this?
In terms of job creation, he says that within the Trump administration, they have created more jobs in America than the history of any presidency in the United States. Okay. Maybe you want to pepper that with some investigation, but all right. He can say whatever he wants to say in terms of what they've done, what they've not been able to do. But look at the issues that he has talked about, whether you want to accept it or not. He is resonating with the people who put him in office. Truth be told, the people who elected him.
He's speaking to his constituency.
Yes.
So the reality we need to face here, do not stop looking at Trump.
The people of America are speaking.
Yes. Look at the people he represents. Stop blaming Trump. This man is a politician. This man, he is who he is. And for him to have sold that persona and people bought it, it means it is a commodity that people like. Notwithstanding,
also you can't take away from the global perception of the United States. From the 80s, well into the 2000s, America was the greatest nation on earth, right? That was in belief from the American people. That was in terms of the globe and what they were able to offer in terms of assistance with the financial institutions and how wonderfully they did, whether it came to capital markets, whether it came to the entertainment industry. Actually, America was number one.
They were.
Okay? They were great. Everything they did about them was fantastic. Wonderful. In that time, countries were building up in terms of their strength.
What we saw about them was fantastic.
What you saw about them was fantastic. Exactly.
Not that everything that they did was,
but this is what they did. Their
the picture they painted
also
of themselves
was fantastic because that is the picture that they put out there for everybody to gobble up, right? That changed over time with the entrance of new players into the game. Enter China, who came in and then took over in terms of might and muscle financially. Enter other countries then who became forces to be reckoned with. It made America not so great again. And people then within the continental United States were wondering, okay, hold on. We're not being revered the manner in which we were. Whether that came from a governmental point of view as an individual or people within the states that you could now travel and people say, okay, yeah, well, America, there's also China over here and there's this other country over here who will be able to, who can also help us. So you know what? It's okay. We really don't need you. So that was a conversation that was bubbling when Trump came in and he rode on that and said, you know what? America's not so great anymore. So let's make America great again. Again, riding on a perception of many people that they said, all right, this is the guy that's going to do that. Let's put him there.
But which presidential candidate in America has never talked about making America great?
All of them do.
Again.
Just in different ways.
Again.
Yeah.
See?
They talk about, making America great.
When you say again, you're admitting it has ceased.
There's the thing. He came in and he said, you know what, things are not the way they used to be. I am the one who is going to get them back there.
Let's reset this.
In saying that, you could now blame someone else for actually bringing America down and making it not great.
Which he blamed Obama for.
Of course he did.
Very many times and still does. Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Obama himself rode on the cars on what had happened in the financial markets in the final years of George Bush. He said, look, I'm the one who's going to come and do something to revive our economy. it's completely gone with these Republicans.
You know, there's this little reality about civilizations. And when people talk about America being great, they forget that it was a civilization. The American civilization was a great civilization. They gave us hot dogs. They gave us the hamburger. Now, they gave us KFC. Then, they didn't adjust. But the point is, there is no civilization on this lovely earth that we're on that has not reached a certain crescendo and has not declined. They all do that. All, without fail. The issue here is how they manage the decline. And usually, when there's a lot of activity and fighting and infighting, that's usually the first sign that this particular civilization is in decline. Not when you see it. It's when it doesn't seem apparent. Going to wars you don't need to go to. Because when you don't clearly win that war, then people suddenly realize that you're feet of clay. You're not as powerful as you thought. Something else happens. People realize it's not quite. And then with all your achievements, other people now have a mirror. They have something to copy. And they don't have to do the back-breaking work you did to create it. They simply start from where you are at, and they will create something better. Because you've done the back-breaking work for them.
For them.
Yes, exactly. So the American civilization is in decline, as has other civilizations before them.
I want to play another clip from this morning's debate between the President Donald Trump and Vice President Biden. This is courtesy of C-SPAN.
He says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
Let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of.
He's got the digs that you have to give him.
Well, yeah. Look, I have never been in elective office until I sought the presidency 4 years ago. You have been a senator, you have been a vice president, 47 years. All right? Where we are at right now, you cannot really distance yourself from the failures of all those administrations. You, as a legislator, you as a vice president for 8 years. What is it that you're saying? What? Just push back.
You know, I have been asked a question. Why are you people discussing American politics? How relevant is it to Kenya? It's actually very relevant. It's actually very relevant because American politics has been about the parties and whom the party puts forward as their candidate. But now, the moment the politics gets to personal issues and personalities, then a new aspect of that particular brand of politics is introduced. Now, our politics has always been around personalities. Parties are just vehicles that personalities use to further whatever political cause or political journey that they want to take people through.
Yep.
Now, if you look at the debate that is now going on and the discussions that are going on, it's not very different from the discussions that we read in the media, that we ourselves in the media produce every day. People talking about personalities. And the reason is because our politics has never been, in the academic sense of the word, been really issue-based. Not really. They never have. So maybe one could argue that we have perhaps burnt a torch that others have decided to follow. America is now doing what we've been doing for the longest time. And our politics has been about individuals and about personalities. Yes.
You know, there is a quote that even Amuliote, our social media producer, has actually posted this morning. Winston Churchill, he said, the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. And just like we're looking back at, it's the voter that makes the decision. What informs the voter when they are going to make a decision? We have talked about this very many times, even with regards to our own politics. What is it that we look out for when you're talking about an MP being ranked the best performing MP? Based on what? Is it, first of all, your own understanding of what an MP's role is, and then your own expectations of what the MP should have done and then saying, this is what I expected this MP to do and he hasn't done it and therefore I'm giving him a 2? Or is it just a perception? The fact that this guy is in my neighborhood and whenever he comes, my kids go and he hosts some boozy and we go and eat boozy. He always says hi. I mean, he's still down to earth, so I like this guy. I know him personally. Or is it just, this guy is not even from my village. He's from another village and he's never come to this village ever since we did not vote for him because we voted for this guy in our village who lost. What is it that you use as the yardstick to judge your elected leader?
I think it's very important to, especially when you're looking at things of governance and, democracy, however that then is perceived by the people, to look at examples of how it is done in other parts of the world. Look at the United States, which we're looking at now, has always been the example or the poster child for democracy, but then we see that they're struggling with the same thing today. Look at what has been handed down or passed down to many countries on the African continent, Kenya being one of them, in terms of democracy and how you should lead your people, the different things that you're asked to do in order to get any kind of help or aid. So to operate in silos when it comes to global politics and the way things are actually done actually is quite detrimental. You wouldn't want to do that. And just like you said, very clear for you to see now that countries that you may have held high in some kind of political regard are also going through the same struggle that you here in Kenya are going through as well. Then to say, okay, then it's possible for us to create our own kind of governance. Look at something that has been handed down to us, and the people who hand it down to us now are passing it about like a hot potato, and they're not really sure what to do with it. It's a lesson, and there's a lesson in everything. It all, of course, depends on what you do with that lesson and how then you take it and translate it to the current issues that you have in whatever country that you're dealing with. It would be detrimental to operate in a world where you're so connected to other countries and not gain lessons from how they operate.
So this is what Trump posted on his social media handles this morning. It was Trump versus Donald Trump. I mean, it was Trump versus Biden and Chris Wallace, the moderator. And it gets very many reactions with many of his support base saying, yeah, thank you, Mr. President, representing the American people even while being attacked from all sides. It wasn't pretty, but I support you. You won that debate 80%, hands down. You're a true champion. See, this is the kind of reaction that his support base would do. Now, if you look at that, come people arguing, Trump is really speaking to a specific electorate in the United States. Come to us as Kenyans. Do our politicians speak to their specific tribe?
They do.
Do they speak to a specific tribe and saying, if it's people, leaders from the coast saying, we've been marginalized for so long, sisi kama watu wa pwani, and whipping up the emotions of the coastal people, whipping up the emotion of the Mount Kenya people, whipping up. This is exactly what happens.
In fact, we have evolved the issue of tribe, and we've moved it from geographical area and commonality of language to an even larger idea of tribe. The youth, the hustler,
women,
the disadvantaged, women. Those are tribes. And that's where the debate has gone to. Now, when the debate gets there, then the issues we talk about can actually come to the fore, because you don't have to be geographically aligned to someone for you to resonate with what is being said. Yes. And so it makes the discussion about political futures and politics in general that much richer. But the truth of the matter is this, with the politics that we have, we only think it is different. Trump is talking to his tribe. And isn't a dog whistle? That's the thing about it. There's nothing. He's talking to people who resonate, who think like him, who are part of his community. And they hear him. Now, there are those who are fringe. They're of the tribe, but with time, because of the socialization and because of the interaction with other people, they don't perhaps exhibit the traits that other members of that particular tribe do. Joe Biden is also talking to his tribe.
His tribe.
So when one talks about tribal issues, I'm afraid you are talking about a global issue. It isn't something that only Africans and people who come from Southeast Asia or Asia have, or these first communities in the so-called first world. everyone belongs to some tribe or the other.
Just because all of them speak English doesn't mean that they are homogeneous.
No.
Let's go to the phone lines. John calling in from Nyandarua. Good morning.
Good morning, panel. How are you?
Good morning.
Fine, thanks.
Yes, morning. You have a very interesting debate. In fact, I watched it briefly. And in my view, this was the worst debate America has ever had. For one, it did not very much emphasize on issues. They based their debate on character assassination, just like that world candidate would do. For instance, the Chris Wallace should have based his questions more on issues such as high American debt. They should have been addressed, and also the issue of COVID should have taken center stage. Also, the issue of environment should have taken a serious center stage. This never did, and when it came up, Trump just brought in a personal attack on Joe Biden. So in my view, the American people did not make a choice of who will take America to the future. Secondly, they should have addressed the declining American muscle. They never did this. So it is my hope that in the next debate, whoever would take the place of Chris Wallace would come with issues that would be of value to the American people, economically and politically, rather than the way it was today. Because I would not be surprised. And let me say, there's no difference between whatever took place and what can take place in our country.
Thank you very much, John.
Don't be surprised if any of them started giving wheelbarrows to the hustlers in America.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you very much for your contribution. Looking at also what people have been tweeting, I'm just going to pick this one from our former CNN journalist, Kenyan Zain Verji. During this, she was saying, give moderator Chris Wallace a break. It's not easy to be in that seat and manage this train wreck. It's easy to make him a target. And also he said, she said, this debate was like the country. Everybody's talking, nobody's listening, nothing is learned. It's a mess. America lost, according to Zain Verji. Other commentators, of course, have also come in and said similar things, similar words have been expressed, at the end of this particular debate. And people are just, coming up with all their own opinions. Eric, good morning, calling in from Nairobi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Did you watch the debate?
Yeah, I watched the debate apparently. But for me, I think the moderator was biased toward Biden because Biden did not answer about the parking fee correctly, and then about Trump. About the debate generally, I think Obama and the rest said their predecessor set a high standard on the debate. It was an issue-based debate, like City tell us.
Okay.
So when we are judging these two people, we are judging them according to
what we've seen before,
like Obama and John F. Kennedy did. But what if this was the first debate, American first debate?
It should have set the standard.
It could just be okay. Hey. It could just be okay, But because I remember when I watched Obama debate, most of the time, Obama did not say shut up and then stop yapping. He just kept quiet, and then he will give you the issue. But for these two old guys, they're just like they're like two people in a bar. They're both drunk, and then they're discussing about another bar. I felt embarrassed as a Kenyan.
Thank you, Eric.
Even Dida is better than them.
Dida would have performed much better.
Yeah, Dida will tell you issue based.
Dida is actually articulate. Yes, thank you very much, Eric. The Trump War Room tweeted that Chris Wallace only interrupted Joe Biden 15 times. Wallace interrupted the president 76 times.
Wow. They were counting.
Well, if you listen to that debate, even when Biden was speaking, the president was giving a running commentary.
Yeah.
He was.
Yes, so it's like two people speaking at the same time.
He had to be interrupted, of course.
Yes.
He had to be told, okay, wait.
Guy, so let this fellow, finish
say what he needs to say.
Yes.
Could have been a tactic as well, because he knew that perhaps there were certain things that he was going to say which would make some sense. And to interrupt him meant that people essentially wouldn't hear. Or they would not get the import of what conversation he was putting out.
You know, it's a sort of discussion that you'd have if you're hanging out with your buddies
in a bar.
Yes, where everybody allowed to talk.
About another bar.
Yes, it's not it's not as though when someone speaks everybody keeps quiet. No, everyone is allowed to talk at the same time. Now you have to figure out what you're going to listen to. Okay. But if you're waiting for someone to speak and then, okay, the rest of us keep quiet as so-and-so speaks, nothing. Everyone is talking and giving their opinion. So now, you're spoiled for choice. Who do I listen to?
A comment by Eric. Two drunks in one bar arguing about another bar.
Lovely. That conversation is rich. Would you say so?
Some comments coming in. Look at what Mutende Mwende is saying. Mutende Weswa.
Right. So for me, I see why politics in our country has become childish of late. We copied part of their constitution, there being the US, to make it our constitution, yet we are still toddlers in world democratic politics. A good example is our leaders seeing themselves as above the law. Just imagine right now we don't have an opposition in parliament, but instead it has been replaced by mudslinging and tribalism. There's the relevance.
Actually, no, it hasn't been replaced.
No.
Tribalism didn't come up yesterday.
It's been there.
It's always been there. First of all, the leaders we have in parliament, they are voted in along tribal lines. You come from a certain tribal region. That's how you get voted in. People who speak your language vote you in. And then you come into town, that's where you may have an anomaly. Okay? But beyond that, no.
The national leaders, I think.
Kip Curry says, U.S. democracy is overrated. Presidents evading tax like presidents in other failed states in Africa. That's another thing, because it came out a couple of days ago that actually it could be that President Trump has not paid taxes since he came into the presidency. So there's another...
I think
it's a parallel that's being drawn.
Other attacks on his person again.
Is he learning from us?
Well,
he's learning from what others have done. It's just that he's being real. Probably.
You know, there's something here that I think sometimes is a bit difficult to deal with, and that your supreme leader is actually a human being.
That's what I said. Human being. It just happens to be that they now are in this position of president.
Yes, and when he stops being president, he'll go back to being a human being.
You see him taking a walk.
Which he was all along. Yes.
You see him taking a walk and people's tongues will be wagging. My goodness, it's individual walks. It's true. The godlike complex or qualities then that they're given because they sit in these positions.
So we say that it's universal.
Are done by humans.
Not necessarily. There are countries on this planet where the leaders are seen walking regularly.
No, I'm talking about here.
Yes.
Here, you see your president taking a walk or in the supermarket doing normal Kenyan things. It would become a story, wouldn't it?
Why
it would become a news story.
Of course it does. Let's conclude the conversation at 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. I'd like to say a very good morning and thank you for tuning in to our audience on KTN Home. You can catch the continuation of the Situation Room on Spice FM 94.4 if you're in Nairobi. If you're in Malindi, it's 97.7, Njeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, Nakuru 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu, Mombasa 87.9. And also to remind you about this waiver by the Nairobi City County Government on defaulters of land rates. So there's a 100% waiver on interest and penalties, which expires on the 15th day of October, just a couple of days to go. Now, concerned property owners should make payments upon obtaining bills or invoices from City Hall Cash Office or Makadara Cash Office and the Times Tower Ground Floor Banking Hall. Payments through Cooperative Bank require payment slips be presented to those offices that I've just mentioned. Failure to present the banking slips for receipting immediately after payment will not relieve the obligation to pay late payment penalties. So if you go to Cooperative Bank and you pay, please go back to those county offices and report, I have paid and presented the slip. If you don't do that, at the expiry of this 15 days window, you will be deemed not to have paid. You will be required to pay penalties. Well, this conversation continues, of course, on Spice FM, just like I've said. KTN home audience, join us again tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation with CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM. Njeri. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice up your life.
All right, some reactions to this quote by Winston Churchill. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Mutenda Wesa says, trust me, Churchill was right. Something that we will never see or hear these days worldwide. Average voter conversation brings us there. In the next hour, let's talk about everything else that's happening in the country. We have been distracted by KEMSA, by MES, by COVID-19, reopen the economy, and by what else? Schools. Oh, we have neglected to give prominence to the fact that Lake Nakuru has broken its bank, so to speak. It's basically swollen and swollen badly. Same to Lake Baringo, same to other Rift Valley lakes. And that has had an impact on people because there are people whose homes have basically just been submerged in water, people whose businesses have been submerged in water. How much attention is that receiving from the leadership of the country? Do we know? Do we not know? Well, we've got to give it the amount of attention that it deserves. And that's what we're going to be discussing in the next hour. Lest we forget, we still have all these things happening in the country. Right? This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. And you can join that conversation via SMS 40127. That's 40127. Or 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Or our social media handles, Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. That is where we live stream every morning. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay, so still problems, guys, that we see on Mombasa Road today. Absolute mess. And then, yes, I don't know what it is right around the DCI there on Kiambu Road. Another bad accident this morning, and it's really clogging up the road. The Susia Maimahu stretch roadblock now by locals. We're not still sure what the problem is. And now some police have arrived on the scene and trying to sort that one out. And so there's still some traffic there. The Mombasa Road traffic, like we talked about, coming off of Figure Road as well, still moving slowly, trying to get into the CBD. We will see traffic end in about an hour or so from now. But for now, you really have to take it easy where you are and just pepper it all with a bit of patience. That's what we require today. From Uhuru Highway to Jogo Road to Mombasa Road. The eastern and southern bypasses, however, this morning are behaving very well. Get in touch on 40127. That's 40127. Let us know what you might see if you're stuck, or if you find an alternate route that no one else has found yet, let us know.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
it's
the only way to start your day.
Today's show, 9:02, 30 seconds, 31 seconds, 33 seconds.
Okay.
Right. And counting. City, as we begin the hour, let's begin with today's proverb.
You cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana.
Unless you put the honey on the banana. I was just,
The argument here is not whether the monkey should eat honey or banana.
That,
It's on the sweetness.
Okay.
Even if you put the honey on the banana, you still haven't convinced that monkey that the honey is sweeter.
Could you have? I'm saying you could get the best of both worlds. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Tell that to the monkey.
Go tell it to the monkeys.
Indeed.
So we have been focusing a lot on what's happening lately. One is the political side of things. Ruto goes wild, defiant Ruto. Then, every day there's a headline on Ruto this, Raila the other, BBI this, BBI the other. Open up the economy, don't open the economy and what it means. And then when you go into the inner pages or in stories that are now appearing, as story number 4, 5, 6 of the TV bulletins, or things that are not actually even getting a lot of traction on social media, are very many other things that ordinary Kenyans are going through. And this includes the swelling of the lakes, which then also displaces people. This includes talking about children who have been at home for so long. This includes the fact that, locusts went, but people's livelihoods were affected by those locusts. Then what happened to them? This includes the fact that there were floods just a couple of months ago. Very many things that we may forget. Lest we forget, we still have all these things happening in the country. Lest we forget, the people of Budalangi who had been displaced by floods and moved to higher ground were complaining that they were not getting support in terms of resettlement back to their old homes. Some of them just carried their personal belongings, but their homes were completely destroyed. So they had to come back and rebuild their homes from scratch. They had to come back and go back to their farms, which no longer had any crop. So we have to start thinking, okay, so what are we going to plant? How long is it going to take before we harvest? Are we going to receive food assistance until the next harvest? Is that happening? Lest we forget, those people have needs.
Lest we forget, even though we have been occupied with the matters of the distribution of money to our counties, prior to this, the counties have been receiving money. Lest we forget, they too have a responsibility to ensure that the citizenry within their boundaries are looked after. And some of the issues that keep come up because it is clear that what the county government ought to have done has not been done. And this is in situations where there has been money, not in the period when there has been no money. And more so with one function that we understand to be devolved, health. Because the one thing that seems to be a constant, even just when you think it is safe to get your head out of the water, suddenly health workers are going on strike yet again. All these issues unresolved. And it didn't begin yesterday or the day before yesterday. Lest we forget.
And unfortunately, a lot of the blame wants to go towards COVID, but I think it's important what you said before, that these were pre-existing conditions, as it were. It wasn't that...
Pun intended, of course.
Yeah, of course. It wasn't that it came with COVID. I mean, we talk about collective bargaining agreements and a phased increment in terms of salary. We have things that are going back years.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about, the months preceding COVID. We're talking about things that had been agreed and that...
For a while.
For a long time. And these still have not been done. So by the time you see people going on strike now, it's not because COVID funds were not released to them. It's because that over time, they've been grappling, they've been begging, basically, just do what you said you were going to do. Just do what you said you were going to do. And now you see it bubbling over because it hasn't been done. So there's still so many things that are percolating in the background that are still not being given the attention that they should be given. A few months before, or not even months, a few days before the first case of COVID-19 was found in the country, there was this whole debate about whether to import maize or not. And there were some 4 million tons of white maize and 4 million tons of yellow maize that were making their way to the country because the National Reserve was empty. We heard Noah Wekesa at some point say that, okay, we don't have enough in terms of reserves. We then heard the CS saying we do have enough, but what we are doing now is trying to negotiate then between the farmers. And then there was no money to pay farmers. And then there was this, that, the other thing. Still a conversation that's being had. Whether the maize made its way into the country or not, we don't know. Whether then it was whether it was then put into the national barns then for future use, we don't know. Whether it was distributed to those who at some point didn't have because their harvests were low, again, we do not know. But it's still an issue. Because guess what? The rains may have lasted for some time, but the period of drought is coming. As it does every time. So yes, we know that COVID has come and turned things belly up. But does that mean that everything else that was supposed to have been sorted out to keep a country running as normal then also took a break?
No, I'm afraid not, it didn't. And also, one actually has to ask themselves this very simple question. At what point did we become a nation whose main concern seems to be the enrichment of the individual at whatever cost over the lives of people, irrespective of whatever else, whatever the consequences? When did we become this people? When did we become this very horrible picture of human beings that we seem to represent so effectively? Because even as we talk about the problems that we are encountering and we continue to encounter, the genesis of these problems are not difficult to pinpoint. It's not difficult to point and say, actually, this one began here. Everything that is intended to make the lives of the Mwananchi better, somehow we manage to turn it into something that is beyond being monstrous.
Was that learned behavior or was that innate behavior?
Combination of both.
Because I tend to think that this whole, if you look many years before, speak of your fathers and your mothers who worked in government positions, worked themselves to the bone, were happy to take home whatever they were paid and built a life from that. Am I saying something that's foreign?
No.
It was the case, right?
There are those who would argue those were different times.
But people were satisfied with what they... People were satisfied with what they earned and then were able to make a life out of it.
Actually, it's even better than that. The government was the better employer, if not the best employer. Whatever you earned, numerically it may sound like it was a small amount, but it was able to meet all your needs and then some.
Yeah.
You could do everything. You could buy a car, you could get a mortgage, the things that you may want to do if you are in employment, you could actually do.
Yeah.
Yes. There are those who argue that around the mid-70s, something was introduced to this country that we had never heard of before. It was called inflation. And suddenly, something that we had taken for granted called oil became an issue because those who produce oil formed an organization that was later to be called OPEC. And suddenly, oil became the focus of the discussions of every nation.
Yeah.
And the provision of it. And as I said, with that inflation, everything that we knew to be one thing suddenly became something quite different. But I think the question we're asking is, at what point did we start, because this was actually beyond us, at what point did we stop being the caring people or the concerned people? Let's consider one thing. When you interact with modern values and modern ways of doing things, part of what happens is that you will mix it with what you already have, or it will substitute what you have. Now remember, in that earlier time, urbanization was something which was a rarity. And people thought in terms of, I go to town to work and then I will go back home. People always thought of going back home. That isn't the thought now. People want to live where they live, and that, as far as they're concerned, could as well be home. And it is home. Societal norms and changes, those are things that are normal. They happen all the time. But ours also happen to have taken place, and it has gone with it the values that perhaps we cherished. Then, if we really did cherish them, then how did we let go of them?
Let go of them in the first place.
Yes.
And then why is it that it would seem as if the general population is so easily swayed by what is going on politically at the moment?
Are
Because
they?
Because, I mean, we asked the question just now. Why do we say lest we forget? Why do we say that? Because something has happened that has taken center stage. Okay, fine, enter COVID, right? But at the same time, there are all these scandals. MES scandal here, COVID billionaires or whatever. And then people's rapt attention there. You kind of forget about these other things that are going on, right? Then there is an election and people, they run up to the election. People are fixated by that, and then you move on. Guess what? It's over time, and as you go along, the things that we are saying that we should have paid attention to are still there for years.
So why do we forget?
Why is it that things come and you just get blown away with the winds of time? You go, whew, okay, that's done. We come, and then there's the next one that's coming in, and then all our eyes are focused on that for some time. We talk about it, we analyze it, things still happening in the background. That one comes, next. But you're fixated on that thing that's happening. Interestingly, totally political, right? Or at least political in nature. And then it goes, and another one comes along. But the issues that we're talking about, which are pertinent to the country, still in the background.
So it's like just a moving slide. Yeah. Whatever is on the screen now is what you're focusing on. And then that moves, another one comes. You've now focused on this one. You forget what has moved.
Why?
Is this a sign of the times? Is this something that we could have changed? Is this something that we have control over? Or is this something that has control over us?
It would seem that it would seem as if it has control over the people.
I think so. I think it's a power of manipulation that has been used very well, even by the leadership class, to their advantage. Something comes up and you realize, this one is going to burn. Let's bring something else. Come on. And the concentration span and the attention span of the population basically is short. So you've been fed with short clips that now you're so used to, all you're going to be consuming is 30-second snippets. If somebody gives you 30 seconds and move, you're used to that. So in fact, by the time it's getting to 30 seconds, you're waiting. So when is the next one coming? I'm tired of this already. Let's move. Give me the next dose of 30 seconds. We've been conditioned to that level where you move on and then you're fed with so many things within 30 seconds that, you forget what was happening 5 hours ago.
Yeah. And you take on a kind of a goldfish mentality whereby whatever happened 30 seconds before, you have forgotten about it. Like now, people are going to be talking about who was riding in a wheelbarrow somewhere in Karen for the next 1 week, right? And then that's going to be end. And even the people who are pushing this, they also realize that we can keep people's attention on this, and we hope that that narrative would have formed and solidified in their minds, and they're not going to be thinking about these other deeper issues. And then guess what? At the time this wears off in terms of excitement and novelty, we're going to give them something else to think about.
Yeah.
We can't assume that they're not calculated in this kind of thinking.
There's definitely something at play here. We'd like for you to join the conversation on 0719-012-600 or SMS number 40127. That's 40127. Our social media handles as well, of course. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's 9:15. Let's take a look at the weather, and then we come back to this conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM, Nakuru. The weather with Spice FM.
Nairobi is 19 degrees and mostly cloudy this morning. We'll have highs of 26 and lows of 14 today. It's mostly cloudy in Njeri at 19, highs of 25. Partly cloudy in Nakuru at 18 degrees, highs of 24, and showers expected later. Eldoret will experience thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's 22 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kisumu. It's going to cool down though later, going to highs of 26 and lows of 18. Kakamega is mostly cloudy at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 15, with showers expected later. 28 will be the high in Mombasa today, with showers later, and Malindi at 29, lows of 24. And looking like a wet afternoon in Malindi as well. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 21 degrees, going to highs of 25 and lows of 18, with thunderstorms expected in the afternoon. 31 degrees the high in Dar es Salaam today. It's mostly sunny at the moment at 27 degrees. All right, let's take a look into Johannesburg, where it's mostly cloudy at 14, going to highs of 21 and lows of 11. Lagos still continues to send down the rain at 28, highs of that and lows of 23. Let's take a look east into Beijing, where it's mostly sunny at 21 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13. London is clear at 11 degrees and it's going to end up in rains later on, 17 high and lows of 11. All right, let's take a look into Paris, where it's cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 19 and lows of 14. And we finish things off in the Big Apple, where it's cloudy at 22 and heavy rain as they get into Wednesday, highs of 23 and lows of 16.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Continues. So why is it that we forget so easily? Why do we have to actually keep reminding ourselves, like, lest we forget? And it's not that we're forgetting events of the past. It's that we're forgetting what's not in front of our eyes right now. It's that also we're forgetting what's not being given prominence by media, not forgetting what's being given by prominence by the political class, the ruling class. Why is it? If a conversation somehow happened to be about the swelling of Lake Nakuru, if there was an issue, let's say a political leader was going to Nakuru and then they got marooned somewhere in the middle of some island in Lake Baringo, and therefore the story would be about them. That story of Lake Baringo would be making headlines every day. And then you go back into looking at what has happened to who else has been affected by this. But right now, it's not.
So is it that the real issues, the issues that matter to Kenyans, are not being given prominence, or that the attention is being taken away? What do Kenyans want to hear about? What do Kenyans really want their focus and attention to be? Because they ask the question.
Determines what's important?
That's the thing. You ask the question when you're putting it out there. Somebody's gobbling it up, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody is paying attention, because, like we talked about, rapt attention. You're giving them this particular fodder and they're still gobbling it up. If they were not interested, you wouldn't have the conversations that you see mushrooming as a result of these events that take place. You wouldn't. If people were not interested, it would die. It's done.
Yep.
Nobody would even pay attention to it. But in as much as we talk about, there's still issues that are going on. It would seem that Kenyans are very much interested in the political sphere and the drama and the scandal. But then once it's over, they're looking for the next scandal train to jump on. As opposed to these issues that we are saying, lest we forget, when we're talking about flooding in the country, when we're talking about people having been paid their dues, we're saying that the education system needs some help, and that drought may come in the next few months or so. It seems that that's not really what Kenyans want to focus on. Or is it They want to see who's going to be the leader and what they can fixate their attention. Or is it that that people are in such a state that they need something that's going to divert their attention, and that's why it's so easy to gobble up on this fodder that's being fed to them politically? Is that the problem?
You know, I wish there was a simple answer to the question you're asking. Some of these things, well, if you want to look at it simplistically, you can. But what we're discussing here is we're at the end point of societal norms having changed to the point where we can actually see them as having changed. And we're asking the question, how did we get to this point where the norms that we have are what they are?
Yeah.
How did our value system get here? Because it didn't take a day, one has to look at the events that actually helped shape it. Remember, the narrative of independence was one. What people refer to as the second liberation was another. Landmarks. You're talking about the multi-party era. You're talking about the new constitution. Because all these things come with expectations. But the thing that has been a constant in all these discussions was the traditional and cultural norms that we held as sacrosanct. You know, this debate we had earlier on about the American presidential discussions that they've been having. Remember, there are rules that are assumed should be adhered to in these debates. Rules. They are norms. Why this is becoming an issue is because those norms clearly went out of the window. Now, we have norms that we consider to be uniform in terms of what we ought to have as our value system. Now, we probably didn't notice when they kept changing, but now they've changed to the point where you have no choice but to notice them, so we talk about them. The reason why we even allow this issue of democracy to take place is because you believe that this is the best way in which your interests can be looked after. And we are now saying that it is proven that that is not the case. Because you introduce democracy, you elect people, and the thing that they seem to do consistently is to look after their interests, not yours.
Not yours.
So again, we've introduced a new debate. This democracy that we have applied to our lives, is it really what we ought to have? Does it really work well for us? Now, everything else, value systems that are based on our traditions, based on our norms or cultural norms, all these things, actually, if you ask me, are secondary. They're things that we normally bring into a discussion when you want to prove a point that favors you. But the reality is, over time, any society will change. Over time. We just don't seem to like the change we have. But the truth is, we actually don't dislike it enough. Because if we disliked it enough, believe me, the noise and the things that we would be doing would show our intolerance to it. We tolerate it, which means we don't dislike it as much as we think or as much as we say we do.
We're okay with it.
Yes.
And why? Why is that?
Well, this is now where I become simplistic and say there's this norm about the nature of a people. A certain trait that you can attribute and say uniformly. So we don't like kicking a fuss, and we also don't like disturbing the status quo. We like conformity as Kenyans. If it isn't bothering us too much, we let it be.
What do you think that was? Is it the fatigue of the independence struggle? Because we kicked a fuss. I mean, the Kenyan people kicked a fuss.
It was a proper fuss.
Yes.
It was a proper fuss.
So we can't say that really that's their complete nature. There was a time...
Even the second liberation, people kicked a fuss.
In that as well.
Actually, having mentioned, ask yourself, in the two instances, independence and the second liberation movement, what happened that led people to the point where they said, no, sorry.
What was the trigger?
Enough. That which was enough led to what we have now as our new constitution, isn't it? Isn't helping very much, is it? Because even with the new constitution, we still see the same games being played over and over again with the new constitution. Hence this statement that we keep making, and in true Kenyan style, we've made it a joke. We've actually devolved corruption, and we think it's actually funny. It isn't.
I think it would be very interesting to ask Kenyans then. I mean, so is this what you want?
Is this what you wanted?
Is this what you wanted? Did you want to be constantly barraged with what you see in terms of political activities or political attitudes across the board and not really want to face the reality of issues in the country or not want to deal with that? Are you really interested in what comes out in terms of political rhetoric, in terms of, which direction your political leaders want you to go in? Is that really what it is that should take up your attention? Or are you interested in the human aspect of development in this country?
But even I think that agitation, if you think about it, it's because it's led by someone or a group of people. If there's no leadership, then you're not going to be able to marshal enough support to a certain cause. So if you look at the independence, yes, there was a lot of course, disquiet and people were feeling how they were feeling. But they emerged leaders. Those leaders showed this is the way we're going to fight. This is the way we're going to push back on the colonial system. This is what we're going to demand. And the tangible results that we want are this, and the other. Something that is broken down into, we want our land back, right? If you look at the second liberation, it was the same thing. We want freedom, openness, but we broke it down into, we want a multipartyism. Break it down, but there was leadership. Now, without leadership for even the fight against corruption, maybe that's why we are where we are. Because you don't have really a solid person who comes out and says, this is the fight. And they take over the fight and they go ahead and they lead from the front in dismantling the corruption cartel, pushing the system and saying, this is it, we want to disrupt the system, the status quo as it is. And then now people look at them and say, yeah, I like what Nduh is saying. I'm actually going to... Tomorrow when she goes out, I'll go out, I'll join her. The next day she goes out, 3 other people join Nduh Okoh. She goes out. If we don't have that, it takes a leader or a group of leaders or people who come together and they push.
But remember the paternalistic perspective of leadership in an African sense, where someone who is in leadership is not somebody you oppose.
Neither are they asking your opinion.
Yes, and even if you must oppose them, it must be in private and never in public and never too loudly. And even if they are wrong, you're really not supposed to say they are wrong, even when it's patently obvious that they are as wrong as you could possibly be. Now, if you look at this combination of all these things that we have, and then let's throw in a genie here, it's called poverty. Poverty is known to remove from the individual a certain element of humanity that you may have and the strength to actually make even personal decisions. It disempowers you.
Yeah.
So when you have a population of people who are predominantly poor, then you have a population of people who are predominantly disempowered.
Right. And the painful part of it is that then, or painful or then however you choose to look at it, politicians or leaders in the making know this.
All this they know and they milk it.
And they leverage on this properly. Because whatever they think they can give to you in the meantime, it empowers you, but it empowers you for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
It's very little and it's for a very short period of time. And by the time that period is over, you've already sold your birthright.
Not only that, it forces you to it actually enslaves you because it forces you to go back to them.
Let's hear from Lydia, who's calling in from Parklands. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning, Spice FM. Thank you for your good work, as always. I'm always listening to you. I wanted to say, now that we are talking about poverty, what about grabbers? What about post-election violence? What about those people now who are coming? I keep telling them it's 24 years of dictatorship coming back. The hotel was built in Kenya Airports Authority in Karen or wherever. Nobody's talking about that. What do we do? And then when I was telling them, Honorable Raila wants to come bring the 24 years dictatorship back. What is this? When Ababu Nyamamba said in Parliament, people are going into a certain room and collecting bribe to do their votes. He was not liked. Men in black came and scuttled the elections. Who is supposed to teach them how to behave? What's wrong with us?
What do you make of it, Lydia? What is wrong?
Do people care?
That means post-election violence, Then now this men in black came and scuttled the ballot papers. Are they supposed to teach us how to vote under BBI? Where is the mistake here?
All right.
We can't deal with this. Even there are certain counties, they are still practicing cattle rustling. They are saying it is their culture. If twin babies are born, you have to bury them alive. That is culture. What is wrong with us?
True.
Thank
Very
you.
pertinent questions. What's wrong with that? Thank you very much,
Lydia.
Lydia. It's 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a break. Let's see what's happening on the roads, whether the situation is improving. It's been a bad morning today, right? Very bad. So let's see what's happening now. Coming to 10 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Spice it.
Spice up your
Still an
life.
absolute mess on Mombasa Road this morning. So if you're heading into Nairobi from Machakos, use the Machakos Komarok Road because if you're heading then from Lolongo to town, it's a mess because trucks basically have carpeted the road. There's no moving. It's very, very slow and moving at snail's pace. I think in this case, the snail could actually be faster. And they're asking the cops to at least open the old Mombasa Road for ease of traffic because the snarl up today is epic. Also being reported by the Standard newspaper or Standard Digital this morning. So guys, if you're on that road, please, you're going to have to be patient or because there's no tailing back on this one. Okay. On Thika Road, a bit of a tear-jerking situation as well, but not too bad at the moment. Looks much better than what it was earlier. So all eyes on Mombasa Road today. If you're there, some patience. If you're headed there, don't. 40127. That's how you can get to us on SMS in case you get stuck somewhere.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So let's not forget,
Mornings
very many
done
things
right.
that are still happening in our society, questions that demand answers, and events that require immediate and urgent action. And they are not getting as much prominence in everyday conversations anywhere, not just in the media, but even anywhere. Bar talk, now that bars have resumed, or even whatever vibanda or groupings that you go to, you don't hear much of the conversation. Or is it that the conversation is actually just concentrated in the areas where it matters? For example, if you're talking about the issue of healthcare workers still not getting their payment, it's only concentrated among the healthcare workers. So it's that specific group that is discussing what
It's
is
not a
important to them.
countrywide
It's not a
interest.
countrywide issue.
Right.
Because it's about the plight of workers. If it's about the people around Lake Naivasha or, Lake Nakuru or Lake Victoria or the other lakes, it's only people around there who are talking about it on a daily basis because they are the ones who are feeling the pinch of the shoe. Lest we forget, all those things are still happening. So what's the situation in terms of the levels of the water from Lake Victoria?
Put it this way, people who had found themselves being displaced by water are still displaced. Okay? See, there's something about water levels rising. Even when they go down, it doesn't mean that the buildings that had been submerged are now automatically usable. They're not.
Yeah.
And remember, until we have an audit of, say, the classrooms, because many schools were also submerged, many schools suffered the same fate, okay? Unless we know of what happened to just homes, churches, there is no national audit that has been done to give us the sum total of the damage that has actually been occasioned by, by nature. No, we haven't. Now, when you talk about solutions that are possible, it is also not possible to talk about the solutions until you have a clear sum total of what it is you're dealing with. We hear snippets, this has happened here, like Nakuru is rising, or this particular estate. That's what we hear. But there needs to be clarity as to this is what has happened, this is the damage, and so we then have a clear idea of what may be needed. And then you have to ask yourself the question, then what is the role of the county in all this? You know, that lake doesn't sort of like, you wake up and it's on your roof. You can see it rising. Now let me talk about Lake Baringo. Okay? And Bogoria. One is a freshwater lake, the other isn't. If it keeps rising, there is a possibility that the two could meet. Now that would be an ecological disaster. So, it isn't just a simple thing of water rising and people being displaced.
Those two are in the same county, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
That's all Baringo County.
They are all in the same county.
So, what do you expect is action from the national government, of course, on the ground, and the county government on the ground as well?
Yes.
And bringing in all the other agencies.
And understanding the seriousness of this whole situation. The other day, we had in the media the issue of animals being stranded because they are in a place which has now been waterlogged. And they're not aquatic animals. Okay?
No, ostriches usually aren't.
Yes, neither giraffes.
No.
Okay? Okay. Or elands or gazelle or yes, exactly. All right. Now I know there was this picture that did around the social media of the gate to the Nakuru National Park. Okay, and I know I joked and said, okay, now it was Nakuru National Park. It's now Nakuru Marine Park. Yes. Jokes aside, what this represents is something far, far more dangerous. We think that the rising of the water is the problem. There is a problem even when it stops arising, and that's even greater. Because you then have to get back people back to what you may consider normalcy. How are you going to do this? What are the plans? We don't hear, you're not even hearing a word in that direction.
But you know, they'll tell you that there's so many balls up in the air, CT. By the time they finish dealing with one, another one has popped up. It's like the person who is trying to put out landmines. By stepping on this one, then your leg is here. You're trying to touch another one. I'm just telling you, wait now, CT, hold on. I'm trying to tell you what they would say. We don't have the money. We're trying to deal with education. The other day, KNH people went on strike. Where do we start paying for that one? Then you want me to start thinking about ostriches. That's what they'll tell you.
Is there anyone on whom leadership is forced?
You said you could do this thing.
No. Is there anyone on whom leadership is forced?
You know,
that is the person. That is the person who can actually put forward that complaint. Or it's like saying a parent complaining about their children. Is there anyone? Yeah, that one. Yeah, they can be.
They can be forced.
There can be someone on whom parenthood is.
But I'm understanding your point. So let's just go with it. Yes.
Well, I'm still ahead.
Get it.
Precisely. So, if you're in leadership and you consider this a problem,
come on, go and sit down.
Precisely. Just change what you do for a living and do something else which doesn't require you to think about these things.
Just drive a bus.
Simple. You get into the bus and you move it. Yes. Something simpler. But the moment you aspire for leadership,
sign up for this thing, you must understand that it's going to be demanding. You must use your thought and apply it to action. You must deliver on the things that you said you were going to deliver. All these many things that you think now gain some multiplicity because you're dealing with this problem, another one pops up. You signed up for this. You said that you could do it. You knew, or you said you knew, the different challenges that are being faced in a particular area. And you said you were the man or the woman for the job. And you said, trust me, I can handle all of this. So truly, that reasoning or that excuse should not come up. That there's so many other things that are going on at this point. If we lose a few animals, okay, it's not too bad. Maybe the park can stay underwater for a while we try to figure out these other things that are happening, and then we're going to get to that. No, it shouldn't be. It should be that you should have your hand on the pulse regardless. Okay, because if you want to make the comparison, look at other countries that have other things going on. Did they forget about those problems because COVID came along? Or do they forget about those problems because one project needs more money than the other? No, they didn't. Life continues. You still do your responsibility.
Are there any activities that are taking place, for example, in Baringo or in Nakuru, in terms of aiding those that have been affected by this particular phenomena?
No. And I can tell you what happened. What actually happened is that KWS sent in a team to rescue the animals and bring them to ground that was not flooded, was not waterlogged. But we have not heard, and it could have happened, and we do not know. But in terms of those whose livelihoods had been washed away, literally, we have not heard about aid or help that has been given to them. I know because I followed this particular story on this one.
So then, if this is happening and there are people who are affected and people who require them to move to other areas, higher ground, or to move in with relatives, what are the governments? And I'm talking about the governments because we have county governments there and the national government there. What is it that they are working on? And this is why we say let's not forget some of these things. Because you need to bring it to the forefront and say, this is what's happening. X number of people have been affected. This is where they've been moved to. So they're going to receive assistance for this number of months. And the assistance will comprise this, and the other. Food and shelter and clothing and for so long. And the plan will be how to relocate them.
Please remember that one of the things that we particularly excel in as a country is finding fault. It's something we do very well. Okay. This is wrong here, this is wrong here. And our leaders also lead us in this particular charge.
Yeah.
Now, the truth is we know what the problem is, but do you know of situations that you can point to and say, so-and-so in this county or this particular county has led the charge in providing solutions for these particular problems that they have? You'll be hard-pressed to find them.
Yeah. You could count on one hand.
Yes. Remember, these water levels started off, we even started talking about people in Lake Nakuru now having fish. Remember? Getting into the fishing industry.
Yeah.
That stopped being fun. Because instead of fishing now, you could argue you don't have to move. You can just fish in your own house.
Oh.
Because your house has been submerged. Not funny. Okay. COVID did its thing, but nature is assisting COVID in this respect. We are beginning to understand, one, just how vulnerable we actually are, and just how little those who claim to be in positions of leadership plan for the people they are supposed to be leading. And how also, when a problem actually arises, essentially at some level, we hear of the Red Cross coming in. Those are the people we hear coming in. And once in a while you hear the county government come, once in a while. But by and large, what we keep admitting to ourselves, even albeit a bit quietly, here on your own.
Yep. If you're really bothered about these issues that we're saying let's not forget about, you have to deal with them by yourself.
Find a solution.
Find a solution and then tell us that you found a solution. Yes. We shall applaud you and we shall move on.
If some other solution comes from somewhere, you can talk about it, but waiting for it, what you'll be doing is actually waiting. The solution may not come. No, it may not. And not quite in the way you think.
But in reality, people do find their own solutions because when the lake waters are rising and you need to move, people will move.
They do move.
The thing is now you need the other support from the government. That's why you have a government in place. Because you will move. You'll either move to go and rent a different place or you'll move in with relatives somewhere. But at some point you still have to consider the fact that this is where your life is and you want to move back. Or your life has been affected and this is the much that you can now do in these current circumstances. So there's a point for people, yes, to do what they ought to do, and which is what people normally do. They just wake up and they realize, all right, so we need to move. They move. But then there's the role of the government in ensuring that they follow up and know these are the people who've been affected and these are the needs that they have. We have organizations like the Red Cross and other agencies that are very active in that. They'll come, they'll know, okay, you guys need to move. We can offer you transport. Where do you need to go to? Maybe if you don't have anywhere else to go, you can put up here. We'll give you a tent. We'll give you blankets. We'll bring you water, potable water. We'll sort you out on these matters. Is this something that the government takes up like this immediately?
But, I'm thinking of even changing the question. Instead of asking ourselves why, or lest we forget, or raising that issue, maybe I should ask myself the question, why do people want to forget this quickly? If I remember and I recall and I go back to the past, how is it going to help my current situation?
Yeah. How does it help me?
How useful is it? Am I not better off just forgetting it?
It's something you would rather forget,
just
so that
leave
it allows you to
leave it.
to
Let
move
me focus
forward.
on the here and now. Not even in the future, the here now, where the future is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Not next week or the week after, tomorrow. Sometimes the future is this afternoon.
And I actually don't want to go there.
So I don't want to occupy my mind with anything other than something that can be useful to me in terms that I can understand and I can directly relate to.
Why?
Because
it's akin to burying your head in the sand.
Well, that's how one would look at it. But one could also say you're being realistic. What is going to change if you keep thinking of the past?
Or the future, for that matter.
What
you
is
can do with what you have now.
Remember, if someone is in this death struggle with just staying alive, one day at a time, there isn't too much space for, should I say, energetic debate on academic things like the future. No. In many cases, the future in your mind will be represented by maybe your child going to school and you looking for a job and getting one. That's the future. Anything else? Yeah, it's neither here nor there. Because in my mind, it helps answer the question of why is it that people will go to a meeting hoping and expecting that they may get at least... Yes, why? They will walk. The answer to that one is not that difficult because sometimes that person has had nothing to do the whole day. So if one can anticipate and you're thinking, why 100 bob? Well, if you ask that question, it means you don't know just how far 100 shillings can stretch.
Can take you.
Yes. Now that person who accepts that 50 shillings or 100 shillings knows how far that money can stretch. That's why they take it. But the question that then I would ask is, do you really want to allow the citizens of this country to get to the point that that is their life? Because that is what I've just described, the life of abject desperation. And how long can they endure that desperation?
We've resorted to escapism.
And how long will they endure that escapism?
Something's got to give at some point. And it'll get to honestly, I really do think that it gets to the point whereby in that moment, when you've gotten to that to utter desperation, something has got to give. And people will realize that we cannot continue in this manner. It might take some time to get there, but you get there eventually. To say that actually this is enough and we must be focused on other things. But in the meantime, it looks like, you can be fed this circus over and over and over again and not look at the issues that really matter, that would stop you essentially from getting to that point of utter desperation. That there are things that could be done with the issues that you're facing right now that would stop you from being in that position where you actually had to beg with your mind and your hand at the same time for something that, by virtue of the fact that you're a citizen of this country, should be your right.
Let me ask the question, Nduh. As you're saying this, I was thinking, there are those who are of the view that people get used to their poverty and their abject positions in which they find themselves in. Now, and so even this question of change actually becomes esoteric. You know, you might as well be discussing something intergalactic with them. Because it's like their lot is to be poor and their lot is to suffer. Do you think this is something that may have visited and may have found root and a home in the minds of our people?
But I think on one side, there's the reality for many people in their minds that it actually could be better. And I think that is latent in the thinking of many people. It could be better. People could actually do their jobs and leaders could actually deliver on their promises. But it doesn't take center stage, right? It's somewhere behind. I'm saying when that latency comes to the fore, that's when you'll have people changing their mindset. But until and unless it does, you're going to have this continuance. It's going to continue.
You know, hope used to be in children and in education because it was understood education would get you, not might, would get you a job. And with a job, the fortunes of the family could change.
Right.
But then, education doesn't promise you that.
Not anymore.
It promises you education. Okay? And the ability to think and the ability to have opportunities. But the opportunities don't present themselves. The opportunities that must be looked for, and usually you have to look for them over a long period of time, and it's a very hard-fought battle. And something that you do continuously. And then there is the reality of jobs that were previously assumed to be permanent and punishable out of the window. It is contract, and the contracts keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You assume the contract had to be a year. It doesn't. It could be a month.
Let's take a break at 10 minutes to 10. Just to remind you of this waiver offered by the Nairobi City County Government. 100% waiver on outstanding interest and penalties for those who will pay within 1 month period that expires on the 15th of October. The ratepayer clears in full the total principal land rate and pay 10% administration costs based on the interest amount payable. Take advantage of this waiver and comply with your obligation. The County Government of Nairobi and its principal agent, the Kenya Revenue Authority, operate a cashless payment system. To get more information on this, just go to epayments.nairobi.go.ke. That's epayments.nairobi.go.ke. You can make payments upon obtaining bills or invoices from the City Hall Cash Office, the Makadara Cash Office, and the Times Tower Ground Floor Banking Hall. That's City Hall Cash Office, Makadara Cash Office, or the Times Tower Ground Floor Banking Hall. Go to these and take advantage of this waiver that expires on the 15th day of October. Keep it right here. The conversation continues. 0719-012-600, SMS 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
7 minutes to 10. The conversation continues. So we were talking about why people just wake up and they sort of like want to escape. Just focus on what you need to do for today. And then everything else sort of takes the back burner. And Nduh, you were saying there's at the back of the mind, there's that knowledge and realization that things could get better.
It could be better, or should be better.
Should be better.
But
what?
But at this point, what am I going to do? And the immediacy of what I face right now is what I need to deal with, as opposed to going to sit down, start advocating for better governance and whatever. 1 o'clock is looking at me, and I have things that I need to get done in order to feed my family. Right? That's what you're focusing on right at that moment. And then one day joins into another and joins into another, and those issues that you have continually take center stage. Every day, just like you said, your reality is not next year. Your reality is now. You get to evening, you say, okay, at least we've taken care of this day. We wake up and we start all over again. At that point, unfortunately, for most people, you're not thinking about changing leadership. You're not thinking about, okay, so even if I was to lend my voice to the flooding,
policy and such.
Even if I was to lend my voice to the flooding in Lake Baringo at this point, where will I start when I'm thinking about a debt that I have to pay in the afternoon, or children who are waiting for me at home to be fed? Do you see? It's not right here until people have self-actualized. Look at places, look at countries whereby the citizenry are actively involved in policy making. They've self-actualized. They're not worried about their food and shelter for that day. Those things are taken care of. So now they can now start lending voice and hand to other things in the country.
So you're basically just climbing up the hierarchy. You've sorted out the basics. We are still at that point. The rat race is on food, shelter, clothing. Food, shelter.
That's why when anything comes along like a political circus, you're transfixed. What happens when the circus comes to town? People are doing their business. The circus comes to town. They look at the jumping trapeze and the elephants and whatever. Then it goes. Then you come back. And then another one comes along. Life. You're transfixed. You go back to life. Right? That's the same thing. That's what happens.
Is this by design? Do you think that this is working very well for the political class?
Very well. Because
and therefore,
they know
by
this
design, they fail to do what they're supposed to do because they know that more I fail, the lower the chances of you actually starting to demand.
By the way, I don't even think they think in terms of failure. No. They think in terms of what they can gain and the aspirations. Remember, when you become an MP, you change tribes. Okay, you are in a new tribe.
You jump classes.
And then when you get there, you realize there's an even better tribe within this particular tribe. Because you're in a sub-tribe. You just entered. That is why there is this need for you. to constantly look upwards in terms of how much money you can get. Because this money is not as though people get the money and save it. No.
They use it.
It is used. And why? It's because there's this belief that because I'm in this position, I am this position. And if I am this position, then I ought to live this way. These are self-imposed values. But it's at the expense of this person who voted you in. It's not as though they sit down and say, let's impoverish these people. No, no. Let's just look after ourselves. The process of looking after your own self-interest will amount to ignoring those people completely. And rendering them positively and continuously poor. That's what you do. It isn't some evil plot. No, no. The poverty is a consequence of the focus on self. Yes. Now, if you were to be honest about leadership, you'd think that you change the leader and
things get better.
It very rarely does. But also, we have to be fair. There are leaders who actually look after the interests of their people. And they actually do the things that they said they're going to do.
Yep.
And they are not few. You can't say it is 2 or 3. They're a decent enough number. And that's why you have leaders who keep being re-elected. There is something that they must be doing right.
Right.
And people must resonate with their leadership. That is why they're able to get that seat back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, the statistics don't lie. Close to 70% of our elected leaders
are sent home.
Yep.
Even some of those that deliver just end up being sent home.
Yes, now those are the ones who fall into the category of other issues like party affiliation. Party affiliation.
Party affiliation. Public musings.
Public affiliation. Same, you know.
You'd have done well, then you went and said something.
Yeah.
And your brain-to-mouth filter was not working on that particular
And you said
day.
something about someone.
And that was enough to send you packing.
That was it. And you're not given time to ask for forgiveness.
No.
Coming to the end of the show, City, today's proverb.
You cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana. Until the CJ issued that advisory, you could not have convinced the MPs that a time could come when Parliament would be dissolved. It doesn't matter what you said. You
this thing could be removed from them.
Yes, you couldn't. And once you have that thinking, then the likelihood of you neglecting what you actually set out to do is phenomenal. It's enormous. And you will forget. And the consequences will wake you up when it's a little too late.
I'm trying to think of another example. You cannot convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana.
You cannot. You're thinking of politics, and that is even more obvious. How do you convince someone to elect someone who's not in their tribe? Look at it very simply. How do you?
Banana is what they're used to. It's what they know.
It's what they like.
And
so they're brought up with.
They're okay with it. And this alternative hasn't been presented to them like a banana.
Yeah, and it tastes different. It looks different. It's
Yes,
not what
and
they
it's
know.
being brought by someone different.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not solid.
No, it isn't.
It's runny and gooey.
Yes.
Okay.
And the sauce can bite you.
All right.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. So let's look out for tomorrow's proverb. Thank you very much for tuning in today. The Situation Room. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, Eric Latiff, bidding you goodbye. Now until 3 o'clock, uninterrupted music, and then Monique will be here with Spice Drive, taking you home until 7, and then the adults in the room, of course, between 7 and 10. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.